The father of cultivation becomes immortal in a strange world, with unknown celestial beings. Everything looks strange around him. Originally a mortal, he becomes a cultivator after going through countless trials, only to return and ascend to the immortal world. But will he be able to return? Tianlandao fruit plantation. The guy came to his senses, not realizing what was happening, where he was. Shouldn't he already be in heaven? Could this be the immortal realm? Though it doesn't really seem like what happened. All he remembers is being transported from Earth to the Nanhyang Kingdom's agrarian planet. He had survived hundreds of unimaginable trials for 270 years. He had passed the red dust trial, the mortal heart trial, and the 13 heavenly tests, mastered the path of the Great Ascension, and finally ascended. But right now, he couldn't feel even a hint of strength in his body, and he seemed to have taken on the appearance of a mortal again. Could it be that he failed to ascend and was reborn again? But this is his original body. He doesn't feel spiritual energy in the air, but he definitely feels another type of unfamiliar energy. But it's an energy very similar to spiritual energy. It's also empowering. Perhaps it can be used to cultivate a new strength and become at least a little stronger than he is now. Xiaoten and the others are long gone. Why haven't they returned yet? Thought the girl. Suddenly, a powerful force wave passed from the depths of the Dao plantation. When the girl turned around, she realized that this wave was because her crazy brother had opened the first stage of cultivation. So easily, he had ascended to the first stage. The first stage of Qi energy cultivation had been reached, the cultivation technique flowing unhindered, far surpassing the effects of spiritual energy. What is this world? This energy seems to have some sort of impurity, as if it possesses consciousness. It's not as pure as spiritual energy. It's probably artificially created. If the guy didn't use his skills, a prolonged connection with this kind of energy for a mortal could end badly. The girl walked over to the crazy little brother who had just woken up and calmed him down, telling him that Xiaotian and the others had gone to look for food. The guy took the girl's hand off his head and asked who she was. The girl was surprised. Gosh, crazy bro isn't crazy anymore. Is she really asleep? The guy started to recall. It seems for a while he was insane and completely relied on this girl. What happened to him? This girl, she is after all a legendary yin sacred vessel, and the yin energy that flows through her body is something that countless cultivators would want to get their hands on. Xiaoten and the others wandered around the plantations looking for food. They were so hungry that if they didn't find anything, they would starve to death. Weren't they chosen by the gods? Why did the mortals abandon them here? It must be a test. They say all the chosen ones became mortals. In this truly scary place, the boys found a bush where many berries grew. I wonder why there are so many berries here. They are so sweet. And these trees grow as if they were blocking the way. Suddenly one of the trees spoke to them, told them to eat berries. The guys were chosen by the gods. When the guys looked around, they realized they were surrounded by trees. They called out to join them, to accept the will of the gods. The girl introduced herself to the crazy brother. Her name is Shen Xiaolin. He doesn't remember her. Did the medicine work? The girl was very happy for her brother. The guy said his name was Zhang, and he was not her brother. He also asked Xiaoling what kind of place, world, or country it was. He asked for the exact answer. Xiaoling said that it is the country of Clam. They are in the land of Tianlan. It is outside the country. Xiaoling didn't even know exactly where they are. Zhang had never heard of this place. It seems like it is not the Nanhyang realm. Is Tianlan a cultivation place? In this land there are those who possess immortality techniques, and their village is surrounded by Eri, and thanks to the immortals they can survive here, said Xiaolin. Zhang Yan had never heard of the Eri and didn't know what they were. Xiaolin hadn't seen them herself. She had never gone outside as she was still too young, but she had heard of them. Every year, a group of children chosen by the great immortals are selected. This year it's them, so this is Xiaolin and Zhang's first time outside the village. Zhang thought that the great immortals were also cultivators, but Xiaolin told him that the immortal lord is a god honored by all immortals. Suddenly, the rest of the chosen team members ran out of the thicket. They were running away from the very airy trees. But the talking airy trees grabbed the boys one by one. Jin Yan walked up close to the tree and realized that this place was filled with dark energy, and the boys being here for a long time would make them like airy. Their flesh and blood had already become trees. Medication wouldn't save them, but the squad hadn't been here that long. They shouldn't be affected. Jan asked if the boys had touched these trees, but they had eaten Aries berries, hadn't they? These trees have been here for years. Their berries contain energy. That's why they turned into trees. So all these trees are former chosen ones who were sent outside the village. Immortals? They're nothing but a bunch of useless creatures, said Jan. Xiaolin has something in her body that Jan needs, and if she helps, Jan can get them out of here. It's something very valuable, so Xiaolin can ask for something in return. The girl asked Jian that he would protect her for the rest of her life. This makes sense, Jan thought to himself. A mortal's life lasts for about a century. Although it is problematic, for the sake of yin energy, he is willing and agree to take such a step. There are a couple of nuances, but there's no time for that now. He needs enough energy to save himself. Jan needs to figure out what happened to his ascension. 5 days later, some of the trees were still alive, and the next day, there was to be an offering to the immortals. Most of the trees would be given to them. So there will be a serious lack of fruit in this grove, and it will be hard for the squad to survive, the bandits thought. After all, the bandits had a couple of seeds, and most likely these seeds had already become trees. The 2 bandits went to the trees to check on the squad, but met Xiaolin and his brother who had eaten the fruit and was not feeling well. The bandits didn't understand. It had already been so many days. Weren't these guys afraid of starving to death? Maybe feed them fruit with bad qi. One of the bandits suggested to just kill the guys, let them go as a sacrifice to the gods. Suddenly, Jan appeared in front of the 2 bandits. He asked them if they were the immortals or not. Mortals who consume food contaminated with pure qi will be eroded and transformed into Tianlan, calling these returned mortals seeds. They retain their original human memories, but their personalities are completely thinned by pure qi. Their lifespan is less than a year, and they see Dao fruits 10 days after transforming into seeds. The amount of fruit produced depends on the quality of the seeds. Optimum seeds are between 15 and 20 years old, generally giving 5 to 10 Dao fruits. But if the seeds are older than 40 years, it will be very difficult for them to produce Dao fruits. John used the immortal art of supreme purity, voluntary transformation, against his enemies. The Qi refining art, the flame technique. Next was the immortal art of supreme purity, divine heaven master, earth spike technique. Next was the sword Qi technique. The enemies were defeated by such a barrage of blows and were stunned. How did John know so many techniques? This energy is called pure Qi. Thanks to his cultivation experience in his past life, Zhang was able to make a breakthrough through the 12 stages of Qi refining in just a couple days. But without the pill of foundation formation, Jian couldn't make a breakthrough through the foundation formation stage. Need to find the ingredients for it. Apparently, these brigands were guards. The guys need to run away before anyone sees them. In the Heavenly Mist sect, the elders asked Jiangxi how the preparations for the great ceremony were going. Jiangxi replied that everything was ready, with 500,000 Dao fruits laid on the altar beforehand. Then the elder said that tomorrow the immortal lord would descend to take away the Dao fruits, so we should be especially careful. Jiangxi reported that the birth rate in the nearby villages had dropped significantly, with 10/10ths of the village made up of the old, weak, and sick. There were 3 times fewer children this year than there were last year. This greatly infuriated the elders. They ordered to go to the cities and find a way to increase the population. Does she really need to explain everything? Let Jiangxi buy children by force as she wants. The elders only care about the survival of their sect, and Jiangxi needs to hurry up. On the way out of the sect, Jiangxi reported that the 2 guards in the 9th plantation were dead. One was burned and the other was killed. Is this an infiltration from outside, members of another sect trying to cause trouble at the great ceremony, thought Jiangxi. Okay, the ceremony is tomorrow, so no worries for now. She ordered not to tell anyone about what happened. Meanwhile, the boys were already in the city. The patrol was not increased. It seems that their escape was not taken seriously. The guards didn't seem to be that tough. Right in front of them, they were saying they were immortal, and they were knocked out by a single blow from Jan. Jan was upstairs at this time, and took some things with him, asking the others to stay out of his way. Jan was busy condensing crystals. Of course, the quality of these materials is not different from the original materials. This low-grade array flag is 10% less effective than the original, and that's enough for Jan. Now only pure Qi can be used for cultivation by John, so one must stock up better before leaving. Suddenly, Zhang snuck out of the room upstairs and asked Xiaolin and Xiaotian to wait here. He would be back soon. He used the item control technique to place 72 points all over the area. Now, only the central core remained. Using the item control technique, sword wielding is slow and requires a lot of energy, so he needs to gather materials and quickly create magic tools. These Dao fruits, are they seriously growing on tree-like human bodies? This is a disgusting sect. Suddenly, an unknown man knocked on the room where Xiaolin and Xiaotian were hiding. He asked Han Ming and Han Gong to open the door because he had important business to attend to. But there was silence. So he rushed into the room since the two didn't dare to open the door. He realized there were 2 seeds. How lucky he was. Now these 2 seeds were his, he thought, and used the immortal art of supreme purity against the guys. Voluntary transformation. But it wasn't to be. He was attacked from behind by Jan with his flame technique. And with his object control technique, Jan sent a sword wrapped in flames towards the enemy. But this technique didn't help much against the enemy. He stopped it and thought that was all Jan could do. But the guy used the heart-devouring fire array technique, striking the enemy, but he couldn't kill him. So John grabbed Xiaotian and Xiaoling and jumped out of the building to protect them. Voluntary transformation is a fundamental technique of the Heavenly Mist sect. It is capable of absorbing a Dao fruit to hear the whispers of an immortal Heavenly Mist Lord who forcibly instills one of the 3 techniques. This technique allows one to stretch and become something similar to keratin, becoming firmer but limiting the attack power. Divine Heavenly Master is the foundational technique of the Heavenly Mist sect. It is able to absorb the fruit of the Dao, hear the whisper of the immortal Heavenly Mist Master who will forcefully bring one of the 3 techniques. This technique can transform any inanimate object, but the skill level limits the transformation distance. A celestial mist cultivator at the sentient spirit stage can only move objects within 5 feet of themselves. Flame technique. One of the basic techniques in the cultivation world that can be mastered at the Qi refining stage. The technique allows one to release flames of temperatures over 1,500 degrees Celsius, but it absorbs a lot of energy, so it is rarely used, a few times per battle at the Qi refining stage. Item control technique is also known as sword control technique, a fundamental technique in the cultivation world. Performed by channeling spiritual energy into an object up to the foundation formation stage, a cultivator can throw objects without much energy loss. Fire array, devouring hearts, is an advanced array formation, using the low-grade array flag as a foundation. It can instantly release flames with a temperature of over 2,000 degrees Celsius that burst out of the enemy's body. However, this array consumes a large amount of energy, is difficult to master, and has low accuracy, causing many cultivators to abandon it. After everything happened, the elders raised questions about Jiangxi's competence. The elders had made a mistake when they appointed her as the head of the sect. They shouted that Jiangxi was dishonoring their followers. Tomorrow was the Immortal Lord's Indulgence Day, and she would be responsible if anything went wrong. Jiangxi said that she would deal with it. She also asked for more patrols to be ordered during the ceremony. The entire sect should be searched in the evening. Problems arise at such an important moment. Jiangxi will catch Zhang regardless of whether he is a cultivator or some other anomaly. Jem and his friends took shelter from the enemies of some cave. They had a bonfire and were willing to spend the night here. With limited Qi refining skills and no magical weapons, if the enemy was even a little stronger than Jan, he would have almost no chance. The ordinary design took all his spiritual energy. He had thousands of years of knowledge of the best techniques from his past life, but the weakest of them requires a stage of forming the basics. The sword arts of a truly divine formation can only be practiced after reaching the foundation formation stage. Then even golden core cultivators can't compare to Zhang. For now, one must create magic weapons to become stronger. This is the next thing that Zhang needs to work on. Xiaotian asked Zhang to fly slower next time, because all the food came out of it. It smelled disgusting. Zhang noticed that what came out of Xiaotian's stomach besides food was the hand and stomach of a human. In the stomach, besides the treasures, there was only a dried-up hand. It was very strange that a weapon could be created from human remains. The stomach can store things, while the hand is apparently capable of absorbing objects. Both are spatial abilities. Jan wanted to try putting his hand into an iron sword, and the weapon should be half finished. Jan still had unfinished business, but the sect's guards had been beefed up, so it would have to wait until tomorrow's ceremony. The next day, the guards reported to Jiangxi that 5 elders and 3,500 followers had been added to the 700 guards. Jiangxi told the guards to wait some more. The Immortal Lord will arrive soon. That's why you can't leave. The ceremony is important for the sect's survival, so we can't take any chances. The named guest must be around. Jiangxi will have to catch him no matter what. It's her duty. Security has indeed been beefed up. To activate the structure, you have to be in the vicinity of it. Zhang hopes that when the ceremony starts, it will be possible. They had built so many towers overnight. They must have used a reincarnation technique that gave them strength and speed to build. When Jan had already looked around, realizing that everything was clear, He decided that he needed to get closer. As Jan got closer, he fell for Jiangxi's trap I had set earlier to catch John. As soon as Jan cut the fishing line from the trap set by Jiangxi, the girl sent out messages to everyone that an outsider had been detected in the western part of the sect by sensor number 174. She told them to report the information to the nearest guards and surround the area so that the enemy wouldn't escape. Jan lost his vigilance. Without spiritual sense, he didn't notice the trap. Rather need to use the design core. If he activates it, he can escape. John uses the rejection technique, but Jiangxi, who used the immortal art of higher frequency void restriction, came out to meet him. Jan stopped feeling spatial distortion. This isn't teleportation. The bow and arrows seem to have appeared out of thin air. The delusion of what kind of Jan can't stop on the way to the core of the construct. Jiangxi could already see Jan in front of her. Above the ground, nothing obstructed her path. Perfect conditions to be confined by the void. The girl thought she had caught Zhang by using void restriction. She imprisoned Zhang's body in the iron cube. The Immortal Lord had only granted this ability to Jianxia's sister and the Qian elders. No one else was worthy of this technique. Jan was able to escape from the imprisoning cube with the low-level absorbing sword magic weapon skill. He pierced the cube with his sword and absorbed it. Jiangxi attacked Jiangxi with fire, but the girl covered her body with stone slabs, preventing the fire from reaching her. She counterattacked Jan again with the void restriction technique, but this time a huge block of stone with many sharp ends flew on the desk. Jan realized that creating such a massive object in the air was too much for his skills at the moment. Using his sword technique, he tried to evade the stone block. Suddenly, Jiangxi's spell itself shattered in a moment. No one understood what was happening or where the block had disappeared to. Jiangxi realized that at this moment, the Immortal Lord had descended from the heavens. She was abruptly pulled down to the ground. She began to fall. Rejection technique. It is a basic cultivation technique using spiritual energy to create a barrier blocking attacks. It consumes a moderate amount of energy while in effect and can only withstand weak attacks. It is often used as a last resort. Emptiness restriction, one of the main techniques of the high purity sect, is the most unique among the three techniques and is only possessed by 1 in 10 high purity cultivators. A living being can also be created, but it will have no consciousness and will only act instinctively. The art has incredible potential, but those who develop this skill are susceptible to decay and rarely live to reach the sea of the spirit realm. Absorbing sword, a low-level magical weapon created from an ordinary weapon and a dried-up hand. The sword's structure is reinforced, but it remains basic and has low combat power. It inherits and greatly increases the power of the hand. The sword can absorb everything within 10 cubic meters. It needs a long recovery after each use. Spatial stomach, a dried human stomach with a mysterious space inside. Bound with a dried hand, it becomes noticeably larger and provides storage volumes of up to 100 cubic meters, allowing items to be freely taken out of it. Seng finally saw what they call an Immortal Lord. It was accompanied by some kind of incomprehensible sound, as if they were activating the anger within Zhang, eating away at him from the inside. That must be why the sect members beat in agony when the Immortal Lord descended to Earth. Jan cultivated for 1,000 years, endured many troubles, got rid of worldly desires. Who did this Immortal Lord think he was, and how dare he oppose John's will? The guy did not understand what kind of foul evil this is, and he dares to call himself an Immortal Lord. Jan doesn't feel anything. It seemed like an illusion to him. While this great Immortal Lord is devouring the fruit, he is completely ignoring John and his friends. Now it's time to activate the construct and get out of here quickly. Jan has assembled a construct of gathering spirits of 9 origins so that he and his friends can leave this evil place. Pure chi is gatherings in one place. I wonder what's going on outside of it. Jan checked and realized that the spirit gathering construct was working. One needed to absorb all the pure chi that was here. But when the guy started absorbing chi, the Immortal Lord noticed him. His frenzy was unbounded. He started absorbing the bodies of even the elders. Jan realized that the sound the Lord was making was stirring his flesh. He had absorbed enough pure chi, so one must get out of here immediately. When Zhang reached the cave where Xiaotian and Xiaoling were hiding, he looked more like a monster than a human. The boys were frightened when they saw him and asked what had happened to him, but there was no time to explain. They had to get out of here. Meanwhile, in Xinghua village, a woman was trying to feed her husband, who hadn't eaten or drunk anything for 5 days. He rejected any attempt to feed him and would not leave his room at all. How heartless to say such hurtful words to a young wife. Poor Mrs. Shuiyi. The villagers told him to go out and live with the lady normally. He wanted to starve to death. Mr. Shui asked the villagers to shut up, or else he would come out and beat them all up. The 9 Origins Spirit Gathering construct is a classic construct based on low-level construct flags. What is clear from the name, it has the ability to gather spiritual energy and accumulate in soul stones. The construct flag can increase the collection radius to infinity. However, the concentration of spiritual energy in the air is not enough to sustain the construction flag, so it is usually used by sectors to collect the scattered spiritual energy in the veins of soul stones. Dao fruit. This dress-like fruit growing on the Dao tree possesses the tree's memory and is rich in pure qi. A mortal who eats this fruit mutates into a Dao tree, but some can hear the whisper of an immortal lord. This bestows enlightenment and becoming a Tai Chin path. Absorbing this fruit is the only way for cultivators to prevent becoming Dao trees, as the fruit serves as a stabilizer for their bodies. Xiaoling chewed on Brother Zhang. She didn't understand if he was all right and what had happened to him, but the guy reassured her by saying that he would return to normal when they left here. The Heavenly Mist sect is truly a hellish place. Even mighty Brother Feng was so badly affected by them. We must hurry back to the Shen family's village and warn everyone. We must help them evacuate. Let Jan get some rest. He is much better than last night, but still scared. The girl is even afraid to look at him. John asked the guys if they saw a shadow in the sky during yesterday's battle, and when they were running away. Xiaotian said that they only saw the sky suddenly darken in the middle of the day, and it seemed like nothing else. Then Zhang thought that they didn't see anything because he had absorbed the evil hidden in the pure qi energy. There was a hidden danger in this, but for now, he could only rely on pure qi to cultivate. You can't discard the option just because of its danger. Jan has infused about 30% of the pure heavenly mist sect into these pure stones. This will be the foundation of his future cultivation. He needs to quickly reach the foundation formation stage and find how to deal with evil influence. These Dao fruits are supposedly the ones they gather from the tree people. John had brought one of the fruits with him yesterday. He was constantly yelling to be brought back. He was close to returning to the Immortal Lord as Embrace. Did they used to be human? The horror. But they don't think so. They consider ordinary humans to be maggots abandoned by the Immortal Lord, and they were lucky enough to be the chosen ones. The maggot that the Immortal Lord is nothing. He is immortal. Immortal Tai Chin, the one who joins, becomes the fruit of the Tao. Then the Immortal Lord takes them away. Anyway, this fruit that used to be a human is talking nonsense apparently. Nothing useful the guys can get out of him. This world is even stranger than Jan expected. He hopes there are plants here with properties like the pill forming the basics. Meanwhile, the elders were trying to bring Jiangxi back to life and were trying to feed her the Tao fruit. Her consciousness was already clear. Apparently, she was saved. Judging from the fact that the followers had survived, the Immortal Lord had been disturbed by an outsider. There was no other way. Jiangxi felt guilty for not being able to stop him. She also didn't understand how John had taken so much pure. The elder thinks that this time, Immortal Lord Tai Chin showed himself, and the pure qi of the sect became even denser. They lost something, but they gained something too. So far, the effect on the growth of the Dao fruit is minimal. The Immortal Lord was frightened. It must be due to an outsider. This was the first time the elders had encountered something like this in many years. For good fortune or bad fortune, maybe this is their opportunity to get rid of the Immortal Lord, thought the elders. Whoever this outsider was, he must have some sort of connection with the Immortal Lord. And once Jiangxi recovered, she should give a description of the stranger. He must be caught at all costs. Jan and the guys were trying to get as far away as possible. The guy had almost recovered and could walk on his own. They had traveled so far from the Heavenly Mist sect that they didn't even recognize these places, if they could even make it home. It had already gotten dark. They needed to find a place where they could rest, and Jiangxi could gain more strength. While the boys were looking for a place to rest, they came upon the house where the girl was trying to feed her husband. They asked Miss not to be frightened, explaining that they were from the Shen family's village in the neighborhood and did not want to cause any harm. They also said that they were in trouble and needed a place to sleep and asked the girl for help. Miss, of course, let the guys in. They don't look like bad people. The girl also offered some porridge that was left over. If the guys wanted, they could have dinner. Xiaotian turned around and saw the eye in the window that had been watching them all this time. He felt very creepy at what he saw. But Miss calmed the guys down and said that it was her husband. He has been paranoid lately. The girl said that there was only one spare room in the house, and there was a barn, and there were 3 of them. Jan immediately agreed to sleep alone in the barn, saying he liked his privacy, but he thought it was strange that they were being watched. Jan sat in the barn and meditated, the evil almost suppressed and his strength restored to 80%. He can't risk going back to the Celestial Mist Sect until he's dealt with the evil. It's a good thing he has a magic sword. Otherwise, he would have fallen into the trap of the iron cube from which it would be very difficult to get out. It's a low-level magic item forged from simple iron, but it followed the ability of the hand. The stomach is even cooler than the hand. It has about 100 cubic meters of free space. After reinforcing it with an absorbing ball, it can absorb objects up to 10 meters in radius. Jan doesn't know whose body parts these are. They look like ordinary flesh and bones, but have unusual strength. Until he has a better choice, he has to knock out 2 more enhancement runes on the sword to enhance later. Suddenly, the very woman who took them in and welcomed them into her home comes into Jan's barn. She was dressed immodestly. After so many days on the street, the boys could finally sleep properly in a nice bed. Sis at this time wanted to take a blanket to her brother Jan. He should not catch a cold. He had not fully recovered yet. Jan asked the woman what she was doing here, to which she replied that she couldn't stop thinking about him from the moment she saw him. The woman asked if the fact that she was a married woman would bother Jan. At that moment, her little sister walks into the barn. Seeing what was happening in it, she drops the blanket, apologizes, and drifts away. The woman began to whisper in Jan's ear why they should not stay in the village of blossoming almonds. After saying that, the woman turned into some kind of monster that Jana wanted to eat. Suddenly, there was an explosion. Jan attacked Shunian without giving her a chance to kill him. Jan finally noticed her oddity. She wasn't breathing, but still alive. He needed to watch this woman a little longer. Suddenly, Shunian's husband ran out of his house shouting that Jan was immortal and started worshipping him. The man began to say that he was from the village of the Liu family. 7 days ago, he went to the neighboring village to pick up his fiancée, Shunian. But that evening, he got lost on the way back and invented an almond blossom to that village. They stayed there for the night, but the villagers lured his bride out and ate her alive. The man tried desperately to escape from the village, but he couldn't. He had no choice but to hide in this room, but the worst part of it all. The next day, Shuiyun appeared right in front of his door and tried to lure him out of the house. But he saw his wife get eaten that night. It couldn't have been her. The creature started calling out to her husband again and proving that she was his wife. But Jan burned her body with fire. While her body was burning, she screamed that if her husband let her eat him, he would become like her, immortal, and they would be happy living in this village. Suddenly, monsters like his wife started coming from all directions. They said that the more people they had, the bigger their village would become. Jan grabbed his friends and tried to escape from there. He realized that he couldn't take the third one, and left him to be eaten by these monsters. Suddenly, Brother John stopped as soon as he passed the entrance to the village. He remembered the man's words that he had desperately tried to escape from the village, but he had failed. Jan and the boys hid in one of the houses. The creatures kept calling to them for the boys to come out. It was clear that they were not going inside the houses. This man also hid in the house for days and was not attacked. These residents seem to be restricted by something. They can't enter or attack other people's homes. If that's really the case, also considering the fact that the guys can't leave this place, Jan is afraid that it's not the villagers at all, but the village itself. Like the Heavenly Mist sect, these villagers are not strong, though their abilities defy logic. In the cultivation world, even high-ranked cultivators don't have such abilities. These powers resemble the power of natural laws. Suddenly, someone began to approach the village. It was 2 strangers. A rank 3, ordinary village that can't be abandoned. Any creature that died in it would turn into a part of the Almond Blossom village and become its resident. Quite often, an Almond Blossom village can disappear from the map and reappear in a random place. Whether the village has a mind of its own is still unknown. Almond Blossom Village Residents. People who die in Almond Blossom Village become its residents. Their human memories remain, but their minds are turned upside down. The residents are bound to the village of the blossoming almonds. Although they don't die from the attacks, over the course of a year, the village absorbs the residents to expand its territory. One of the people who came to this village didn't see anything special here. What was the point of forcing him to come here? But the other replied that it may seem like a minor problem, but if you leave this place for a while, it will grow to be an intimidating anomaly. The brother asked Jan what they should do if they have to rescue these 2 aliens, to which the guy replied that there is no need for these 2 to breathe either, so they are not human. The monsters, the villagers of the Almond Blossom village, wanted to attack these 2 and were coming towards them to attack. Well, one of these 2 suddenly took out his claws, slashed his enemies, and told everyone to shut up. Jan didn't feel any abnormalities in the energy of these two. They weren't cultivators, but they weren't anomalies either. Humans with thinking and communication skills. Could it be that these anomalies are somehow similar to the monsters from his past life? Jan urgently needs to find other cultivators to learn the basic knowledge of this world. Xuanyan, or rather the monster inside her, tried to attack one of these two phantoms. But it absorbed Xuanyang's body. Those it absorbs will not return. Almond Blossom Village. It seems that this phantom is a great opponent for her. The phantom said that he was tired of playing and asked Almond Blossom Village to be a good village and merge with him. Immediately after these words, he started to devour the village. John and the guys had no choice but to run away because the hidden blessing is their chance. The two saw the guys running away from them and thought that it must be a stranded farmer. Phantom said it's too much trouble. It's just a low-level cultivator, let the village absorb them and be done with it. One of the two used a shifting jump but didn't catch Jan and the guys. Then he asked the Phantom to still catch them himself. But the Phantom again replied that it was just a low-level anomaly. You could just forget about them and leave them. The guys safely escaped. Jan concluded that the village had been attacked, and he thought that was why its barrier had been weakened for a while. Jan changed direction several times in mid-flight. It would be hard for these two to find them without special tracking skills. Still, the guys better get out of here. Suddenly, in the bushes, the guys and Jan saw some creature with a big eye again. It's not dangerous yet, but it doesn't look like a normal creature. Is it another anomaly? Anomalies are so common in this world, while mortals survive in this world. It seems that this creature is not dangerous yet. They should try not to provoke it and leave quietly. When the boys escaped, they caught a mountain chicken and sat by the fire, resting and eating. When they had eaten, they saw that the strange creature was still following them, but it looked pitiful, like a lost puppy. Jan said that they didn't know if it was dangerous yet, and asked the boys not to make the creature angry before it attacked them first. Suddenly, Jan sensed danger somewhere in the bushes and attacked it with his sword, pointing it toward the enemy. But the enemy caught the sword with one hand. He asked the brother farmer not to exert himself so much. He was just a passing dowist and didn't want to hurt them. He looked like some kind of scary creature, but being an old dowist is not abnormal. The old man also asked about Zhang, calling him a buddy of strong, pure chi energy. The old man thought that John must be a follower of the Heavenly Mist sect or the Supreme Purity sect. The old man laughed because he didn't recognize him. But he seemed to have recently joined the Celestial Mist sect, the old man thought. The old man laughed at the fact that Jan didn't recognize him. It seems that he had recently joined the Heavenly Mist sect, the old man thought. After all the followers of the Heavenly Mist sect would tremble with joy when they met him, a Taoist with treasures. Jan looked at this old man and could not determine his strength, but the old man was definitely not weaker than his companion. It was better not to clash with him. John asked the old man what treasures he had, to which the old man replied that he had blood artifacts. He seemed to have a couple left with him. Brother Xiaotian said that this blind old man is strange and frightening. He definitely has nothing good on his mind. It is better not to take anything from him. Just make him leave. The old man asked the guys if they needed any artifacts. The guys said no, but the old man didn't insist. But Jan decided to just take the artifacts away from the old man and asked him to just leave. Even though the old man's mouth doesn't say that everything is fine, the killing intent coming from him says quite the opposite. Not accepting this old man's gifts would be much more dangerous. The old man only laughed, turned around and decided that perhaps he would leave to destroy the guys so unfriendly. Xiaotin saw that the old man had just given John the artifacts and stopped him and asked him if he could give him something. The old man turned around and replied that he was immortal. Why would he need bloody artifacts at all? Xiaotian said to Brother Zhang to always protect them, and he also wants to become strong to protect his sister. I wonder, Malloy, if he wants to be a cultivator, the old Taoist can teach him, said the old man. Zhang said that everyone has their own path, and he has no rights and responsibilities to interfere with Xiaotian's path. Brother Xiaotian couldn't leave his sister behind. He can't just wander the world with the old man or something like that. It's not a problem at all. Other sects have delineations of obligations and prohibitions, but in the high-frequency old man sect, anyone can become a cultivator. If Xiaotian is proficient in initiation techniques, he doesn't need a teacher. The old man asked him to approach him. He whispered something into Xiaotian's ear that made him very scared. It was a method of initiation and mantra. The old man asked him not to be so scared. Wasn't that person a follower of the Heavenly Mist sect? Compared to the High Purity sect, the old man's methods were much simpler, and they didn't harm the surroundings. Zhang realized that it was hard for Xiaotian to accept the cultivation conditions. If he could become a cultivator from a couple of hints, it wouldn't be a righteous path. In this world, a simple decision was not always the right choice. Zhang saw that Xiaotian was adamant and agreed to train him. At least this way he wouldn't stray from the true path. Zhang was only willing to help him reach the qi refining stage and teach him basic self-defense techniques. The rest would be up to the boy to learn on his own. Zhang and Xiaotian stayed up all night and practiced all night. He has good ability, he meditated all night, so his pure qi had already passed one complete cycle through his body. Soon he should enter the first stage of qi purification. Sis became worried about her brother. Wouldn't Xiaotian turn into a tree if he absorbed the pure qi? Zhang explained that the pure qi should not cause any damage if the concentration technique was applied to it. Suddenly, Xiaotian felt very sick. He started screaming and calling out to the Immortal Lord, but Zhang managed to help him at the last moment. He managed to pull out the purified one from his body. Zhang didn't understand what was happening, why the qi concentration technique didn't work. Why could he concentrate and suppress the evil in the pure one? Xiaotian said that at that moment he heard strange voices. It felt like his entire mind was filled with the name of the Immortal Lord. If he lost his consciousness, he would no longer be himself. Jan apologized to his brother and said that it was his mistake and asked him not to practice until he got it sorted out. Suddenly, the same strange creature that had been following the boys appeared again. Jan was afraid for the boys and asked them to hide behind him, but it looked like this creature was showing them the way to the village. His name was Yui Yui. With Yui Yui's help, the boys were finally able to get back to the village. Thank gods this creature is cold and watery, so this name suits him very well. When the guys got very close to the village, Jan felt that pure qi energy was emanating from the village. Yui Yui is an unexplored, water-like substance that possesses the consciousness of a 5-year-old child. Can ponder any object or event in this world. Based on how it is presented, cultivators who are aware of it often wish to acquire it. However, Yui Yui's capture is made more difficult by his ability to shift between liquid and semi-liquid states and develop incredible speed while flying. When the boys entered the village, they saw that the village was overgrown with human trees from the Heavenly Mist Sect. Grandpa Shen, who was already like a tree, recognized Xiaolin and Xiaotian. He asked them to hurry up and run away before the two immortals returned. Grandfather also said that when they left, the two immortals had returned to their village to kill the villagers on someone's orders. One of these two said that there were no young people left in this village. The old people would not be able to become Dao sprouts. The other said that it would be too costly to kill them all, so they decided to feed the village with cattle fodder. Hopefully in a couple of days, the sprouts would appear. Xiaotian's grandmother also became a tree, but she didn't recognize anyone, and when she saw the boys, she only mumbled that the mortal lord had come to meet her. Zhang calmed the guys down and said that it had nothing to do with Xiaotian and Xiaolin's escape. I asked them not to blame themselves and to keep their hands to themselves. Xiaotian thinks it is inhumane. These demons also want to become immortal. He bites his finger to the bone and cries out for Immortal Lord Shengqing, sacrificing his body. Zhang stopped Xiaotian and asked him, is this the same technique the old Taoist taught him? Taiqing and Shengqing are there really more than one of these immortal things? One is the Immortal Lord of the Heavenly Mist Sect, the other is the old Taoist's technique. Suddenly, the same two who attacked the village and turned the villagers into trees appeared from behind. The old men don't work at all. Not a single Dao fruit in 10 days. They thought that there was nothing they could do about it, but a couple of beautiful specimens appeared. Xiaotian immediately attacked the enemies. They were the ones who did this to his grandmother. He had to take revenge. A mere village cattle dared to raise a hand against these two. How daring. One of these two decided to teach Xiaotian a lesson and cut off his hand. Losing one hand would not affect the growth of the Dao fruit. But when he tried to hit the guy's arm with his blade, he was left without an arm and fell to the ground. The second bandit immediately realized what had happened when he looked at Zhang. He recognized him as the man who was on the flyers of Zhang's older sister. The enemy immediately turned around and started to run away, leaving his associate to die on the battlefield. Xiaotian was still beating up one of them. He was running away and remembered that, according to rumors, the strength of the person he saw here was comparable to that of senior sister Jiang from the Divine Revelation realm. Oh crap. Running away, he mumbled that he was afraid even if Big Brother Wei came, he probably wouldn't be able to handle him either. Suddenly after his words, Big Brother Wei appeared and killed the fugitive, calling him a useless fool. He asked the guys who they were to set foot in the Heavenly Mist Sect's territory. Then he looked at Jan and remembered that he had seen Jiangxi's flyer with his portrait on it. and he was the one who had recently caused a commotion in the Heavenly Mist sect. He was the one who killed Wei's brother. How lucky Wei was to stumble upon Jiang. After looking at Wei, Jiang realized that he was just blazing with pure qi energy. It wouldn't be easy to deal with him. He ordered Yu Yi to take his sister and brother with him and leave. Jiang Shi couldn't catch Jiang. So many people let him escape. They are all useless. Immortal technique. Shangzi Divine Master. This technique was the technique Wei used against Jiang. So far, the followers of the Heavenly Mist sect were showing their mastery of the physical transformation technique and object-changing technique. This woman that Jan had met earlier possessed a rare ability to restrict the void. Although Wei's object-changing technique is powerful, her apparent weakness is easy to control. Wei revealed that he and his brother grew up alone, begging on the streets. Their father died of starvation, and their mother died of cold. To survive, his brother had to steal, cheat to hobble him. A couple times he was even beaten to death, all to raise Wei. But Jan killed Wei's brother. They fought as hard as they could to survive, and thought that this was how their whole life would go, but then they were spotted by the Heavenly Mist sect. Surprisingly, they had a talent for cultivation, and decided to become cultivators. And Wei, with his outstanding ability, climbed to the top step by step and became a devoted follower. From that moment on, he and his brother had everything they wanted. Life was finally beautiful. Then Jan showed up. Wei's brother was just starting to live a really good life, but Jan killed him. Worshipping evil and devouring mortals, call it cultivation. Do they both think that entitles them to a good life? Jan asked. We replied that they deserved a good life because they devoured immortals. Didn't Jan know that in this world not eating others was even worse? Jan's sword struck right at the target in the fight, but couldn't hit it. Why? It's called indestructible body. Jan shouldn't think that Divine Master is his enemy's only trick. Divine Master is a simple technique bestowed in the realm of perception. When people reach the realm of divine revelation, they hear much more immortal lords' voices and awaken the strongest techniques. The opponent's indestructible body cannot be destroyed. Nothing in the world can injure him. More importantly, he told about his and his brother's bond. But Jan is still unrepentant, and Wei wants to tear him to pieces to avenge his brother. Meanwhile, Yu Yi had already taken the boys to a safe distance, but Xiaotian was still coming out because of those bastards who had destroyed their village. Xiaolin said that there was nothing they could do about it. They would only hinder Brother Zhang. She is also sorry for what happened to her grandmother and the village. But she doesn't want to lose Xiaotian too. They are the only ones left with each other. Xiaotian shouldn't do anything reckless. He still has his sister. Zhang was still attacking his enemy, but all his attacks were useless because they couldn't penetrate Wei's defense. We realized that without the sword, John would no longer be able to fly around him, and took it away. John had planned to run away right after the two of them, but now he was encased in stone. Now Jan won't be able to swirl around like a fly. Wei finally caught him, that's all. Zhang Shi is just a weakling, always exaggerating. This indestructible body annoyed Zhang. At least the qi refining technique can't hurt him. A couple days ago, he had put explosive runes on the absorbing golden sword. Its explosion would be equivalent to a clean strike he in the initial stage of establishing the foundation. But, at this distance, Janna will also get hit by the blast. He wanted to connect, but now he's trapped. Well, we'll have to take our chances. The sect ordered to take Zhang alive, but unfortunately for him, he ran into Wei, who wanted to kill him. When Wei rushed to attack Zhang, he couldn't pierce him with his dagger, he just didn't hit him. Zhang used the immortal technique of Shanzi, Indestructible Body, and Divine Master. The Qi Sword technique is a basic technique of the Qi purification stage, striking the opponent with a sword charged with Qi energy. The power is medium, but because of the low energy consumption, it can be used continuously. We didn't understand how Jan could use the Divine Master and Indestructible Body techniques. He wasn't a follower of their sect. He couldn't use these techniques. Was it an imitation? Using his own techniques against him, copying other people's techniques was rare, but there was nothing supernatural about it. Divine Master Zhang's techniques are 10 times Wei's strength, he thought. At the end of the fight, Wei was completely defeated and Jan made his way to his sister and brother. Was it the effect of cultivation pure? His body was completely out of control, and he even used that person's ability. Was it a cultivation error? His brother asked Jan if he was all right. They heard the sound of an explosion from over there. What happened and where was that man who attacked their village? Jan replied that the man had been crushed by a boulder, but he didn't have the strength to break the boulder to confirm his death. If he is alive, in any case he is badly injured and lying unconscious. Jan watched him for a while before leaving. They are safe now. The village has been destroyed. There is no reason for them to go back for the remains of the inhabitants. John promised to protect Xiaoling, but since they now have nowhere to go, they better follow John. He would find a safe place for the two of them. Zhang's spiritual strength has been depleted. Once he recovers, they will immediately leave this place. For now, have this water balloon look for the nearest town. Jan needs to gather healing herbs. He's only been in this world for a few days. He still doesn't understand why his ascension failed, and instead there are strange things happening to him and his body. He better learn the basics and realize what went wrong with his ascension. Meanwhile, in Lushou City, children were chasing a white pussycat and wanted to kill it. District Judge Liu wondered if by city riots he meant these kids bullying cats. The judge assured Mr. Chen that not only that, in the last month there had been several cases in the city with severe injuries leading to death. The perpetrators were children filled with violent impulses. They attacked for no reason. At first they thought they were isolated incidents, but more and more incidents were occurring and they had already arrested a dozen of them. More and more kids are starting to behave like this, from bullying cats to attacking passers-by. The townspeople are terrified. They're afraid their kids might become possessed too. In the last few days, some other kids have committed crimes. The judge is completely confused. The judge suspected that the anomaly was behind all this, and so he reported it. He hoped that Lord Chen would save the children of Luzhou. Luzhou City is the nearest settlement within a radius of less than 100 miles. Looks like a very prosperous city. Jian hopes that he can find ingredients to create medicine. Xiaoten and Xiaolian were in the city for the first time. They saw that Shenghu's grandfather, who was visiting their village, also had ordinary household appliances like here. Since the guys entered the city, John hadn't seen a single good inn or store, and there were also homeless people everywhere. This place seems to be cut off from the trade routes. I wonder if Jan could find the necessary ingredients in the medicine shops. When he entered the shop, Jan asked the merchant for all the herbs that were centuries old and untouched by spiritual powers. The merchant looked at the boys incredulously and asked for the recipe. They didn't want any trouble after all. These village scum, the one in front is dressed decently, but asking for 100-year-old herbs like that right away. Liar. Most villagers can't afford century-old herbs. Their stockpiles have been accumulating for years. Once they see them, they won't buy them anyway, and the merchant will teach these rednecks a lesson. When Jan took the roots of the herbs in his hands and smelled their aroma, he knew immediately what he needed. It was a natural warmth that restored vitality and protected against all sorts of contagion, a wonderful substitute for the white flu included in the knowledge of the basics. Jan didn't expect to find 3 such substitutes in such a small store. Moreover, it's powerful and centennial herbs. Jan intends to buy it all from this merchant. Apparently, alchemy is neglected in this world. Otherwise, these herbs would be in widespread use among the low-level cultivators in the immortal world. The sack that Jan had gotten from that man still had a lot of gold in it. It should be enough to buy all the ingredients to create a foundation cognition technique. As Jan and the guys were leaving this trading shop, they met Chen and Shui Qiu on the way. Shui Qiu also realized that a person emitting energy with pure qi had passed by him. Chen knew about Shu Qiuqiu's hatred for Taiching cultivators, but they had a different task now. It was better not to make a fuss in this city. Chen had heard that the Heavenly Mist sect had recently started rebuilding mortal villages. It was unlikely that they would attack the townsfolk here. He was most likely a lackey from the perception realm. Now it was better to let this guy go. Jan also sensed that these two were cultivators. The one on the left was releasing energy pure. Could it be that they were at one with the government? Jan didn't believe that the government was in cahoots with the Taichin cultivators. Although he had planned to contact the local cultivators, no need to now. He should concentrate on learning the basics. All the basic herbs have been gathered, but only this 1,000-year-old bloodroot can be the main ingredient. Jan searched all the pharmacies in this city, but the longest duration doesn't exceed 40 years. Although it's even better than he expected, next he'll have to find a bigger city in the prefecture. Suddenly, Jan was approached by an old man who asked him if he was looking for a 1,000-year-old bloodroot. 1,000-year-old bloodroot likes light and avoids shade, so it grows in conspicuous places, making it easy to collect. It's rare to find a root older than 10 years. However, this old man claims he's looking for ones over 100 years old. The guys were surprised and did not believe the old man, because he looked like a common beggar. Everyone offered them roots no older than 40 years, and here some beggar offers a root to which more than 100 years. But the old man put his hand in his pocket and took out a root that had turned red. It was obvious that it was already very old. Not bad. A 1,000-year-old bloodroot grows 1 inch per year, every 10 years. And this one has already crossed the threshold of 100 years. The old man asked for 300 taels for the root. Xiaotian immediately began to resist. With that kind of money, one could buy an entire village. The old man's face was as if he had really cheated Jan. Jan didn't even bargain. Although who cares? It was his money, and he looked happy. Brother Zhang was just thinking that this world is unusually rich in spiritual herbs. He no longer needs to worry about medicines. Great news. Well, it is time to find a secluded place to create a knowledge of the basics. At this time, Lord Chen reached Immortal Li and the other cultivator who were waiting for him. Li Changshu had long admired the Blade Demon's reputation, so he invited him over for introductions. His assistant was Qin Shengnan of the Fierce Jade Sect, a Qin Dowist. Li Changshu asked Chen why he had brought an evil cultivator from the Taiqing sect here. Chen said that there was a misunderstanding. Shuqiu village had been tricked and taken over by the Taiqing sect. A few years ago, his village had been a seed for them. And only he, who possessed the cultivation abilities of a Taiqing, was force-fed the fruits of the Tao. But Shuqiu's willpower was so strong that he was resistant to the will of the Taiqing. Escaping from the sect, he joined the ranks of Lord Chen. But to suppress the will of the Taiqing, his cultivators must regularly absorb the fruits of the Tao. Isn't that right? Li asked. Shuqiu takes the soul, absorbing medicine to suppress Taiqing's will. Although it brings him great pain and shortens his life, the medicine keeps the will at a safe distance. Soul-devouring medicine. To use such a thing, Li did not think at all about what he was saying and apologized to Shu Qiu for the words he had said earlier. Now they can move on to the main problem. In Liuzhou, the identities of the children have been drastically changed. Li has investigated a couple of cases on his own and can confirm that this is definitely not a common occurrence. The situation is getting worse, and he can't find the cause, so he reported it to the higher powers, hoping for their help. Li thought that they are just making up evidence very quickly. Lord Chen lives only for his reputation as a former inspector. In that case, Li suggested to let the Lord handle the case, while the two of them and Dao Qing help him from the outside. The next day, the guys woke up in the pottery workshop. Why did Zhang choose it? He sat here all night alone and told them to guard the workshop, not to let anyone inside. Shoten had hoped that coming to the city would guarantee them a night in good beds, but they ended up sleeping in a tent again. At this time, Zhang was cultivating the impurities were completely destroyed, and the medicinal properties were completely concentrated. Now there would be condensation. Perfectly. 10 pills, each of them of the highest quality as Janai expected, by refining these substitute materials with various techniques. They had reached 99% of the effectiveness of the original pill of knowledge of the basics. With Jan's skills as a 6th-level alchemist, 3-level cognition pills aren't that difficult to make. However, he still needed to find a suitable furnace to further refine the pills. At first, he was going to find a suitable cave on the outskirts of the city for this. But this pottery furnace is also quite good. Its walls are thick enough to keep out the refining noise. Excellent. This place might as well be used to make a breakthrough. The guy needs to decide on a basic cultivation technique. In his past life, he practiced the divine heavenly sword formation. This technique is incredibly powerful, not to mention the ability to use different sword formations to kill opponents from all realms. But it is not suitable for this world teeming with all sorts of anomalies. He still remembers many highly effective techniques from his past life, but most of them require strict cultivation conditions. His current body has the spiritual origin of gold, earth, and wood. One must choose the most suitable technique for him. At this time, Sis was talking to brother Xiao Pul. Their parents were taken away by the Heavenly Mist sect. They were very young at that time. Their grandmother raised them, and now both the village and grandmother have left them. But every time Sis thinks of having brothers, she finds the strength to fight in such a world. Having a whole family is already a blessing. Xiaotian was again upset by these words. He said it wasn't because his parents and grandmother were dead, turned around and said he would go for a walk and come back before it got dark. Xiaotian was worried that first the fat man and Erhu, then the adults in the village, and then his grandmother died, one after another, without warning, without reason. This feeling of helplessness, it was driving him crazy. If only he had the strength like brother Zhang. Suddenly, Xiaotian was attacked from behind by a boy with a hammer. He wanted to pierce the guy's head, but he didn't have the strength. Xiaotian fell to the ground from the blow, and these kids finally succeeded in attacking a living person. Those idiots from the second group couldn't stop bragging about crippling the old lady. Let's see if they will brag further when they find out that it was the kids who killed someone today. the kids shouted. The kid who had knocked Xiao Tian to the ground from the blow to his head wanted to turn his head into a pulp with that hammer. But the kid was saved by the same old man who sold the 1,000-year-old root to Zhang. He chased those kids away and spoiled their fun. As Lord Chen said, today they would only explore the city academies. Even though he said yesterday that the changes in the children's behavior most likely caused the environment in the schools or private academies. Didn't they reduce the terrain too much to investigate? Luzhou is a poor city. Children are not allowed to walk outside. The only place they can gather is the academy. And yesterday, Chen asked the district magistrate to make a report. The children involved in the incidents are at the age of enlightenment, but their classmates who did not go to school were not affected. Usually these suspicious cases are linked to a specific location, so the academies are the best bet. But if it's the work of an evil cultivator, then they would have to search the entire city. Sukyo wondered who Lord Chen's colleagues were that they met yesterday. One was so puny, and the other was too arrogant and kept to herself. But it seems that Shui Qiu did not understand Lord Qing. She is a cultivator and a pure jade sect cultivator. It is characteristic for her to behave differently from everyone else. The purest jade sect is in no way related to the great purity sect, but if one were to draw a connection between them, their beliefs in the immortal Tai Qing, Yu Qing, and Shang Qing are combined into the three purest ones. However, the sects that worship these immortals are completely different. They are even in different worlds. The Great Purity Sect, as everyone knows, practices evil cultivation by planting mortals, and they also present Dao fruits as offerings. Although their cultivation is weak, their numbers are huge. They are like locusts spreading everywhere and cannot be eradicated. But in the Chen Kingdom, Lord Qin's Pure Jade Sect has been recognized as an orthodox sect. The cultivation principle of the Pure Jade Sect is to renounce the 7 emotions and 6 desires. Based on this, the reason for Lord Qin's detachment should be clear. That was it. Renunciation of emotions and desires. But what about the highest purity sect? That question remained open as Chen and his assistants arrived at Bai Academy. They were met outside by the owner of the academy, Mr. Bai. He didn't understand what brought the Lord here and that his academy was bothering him. Kan explained that there were suspects not far from here, and the Lord then asked Mr. Bai for his assistance in the search. Meanwhile, Xiao Tian woke up at an old beggar's house. The old man saved his life. The old man gave Xiao Tian a medicine to make his head well. It needed to be applied for a few days, and the guy will recover completely. It's time for the old man to eat. So he threw Xiao Tian out. He's out of food. The old man's food smelled very strange. It was like a soup made of garbage. How could he even eat it? He just ate 300 taels. The old man said that he spent all that money, but did he spend it on gambling or women? Meanwhile, Chen kept questioning the owner of the academy. He is the only teacher in this academy. It must be exhausting. But Mr. Bai said that it wasn't. Teaching people was his duty as a scholar. Could it be called exhausting? Lord Chen continued. He heard that Mr. Bai is not from Luzhou City. That's right, his hometown is Yuzhou. He moved to Liuzhou to teach 6 months ago. Liuzhou is quite far away. It must have been hard to come all the way here as a mere scholar. But as you can see from this courtyard, Mr. Bai lives well. Said he had to sell all his properties in Liuzhou to afford the rent for this academy. But isn't there an enlightenment hall in Yuzhou? As a scholar, he could easily teach there. Why all the way to Liuzhou? Mr. Bai said that Lord Chen was wrong. There was never such a hall in Yuzhou. Maybe it was installed while Bai was away. Lord Cheng was approached by Xu Qiu to tell him that they didn't find anything suspicious while they were investigating this academy. Lord Chen immediately attacked Mr. Bai, saying that he was definitely hiding something, but Mr. Bai replied that it was a misunderstanding and he was innocent. Then Lord Chen apologized to Mr. Bai. It was a safety test, due to their duties. They have to be careful about everything. Fortunately, there seems to be no suspicion towards Mr. Bai's academy. Lord Chen and his men disturbed Mr. Bai and scared him. Lord Chen promised to pay him a change visit in a couple of days. Sukyo asked the Lord to warn him about such tests in advance next time. He almost took it seriously after all. As Lord Chen and his men turned around to leave, Mr. Bai asked them to stop for a second and wait. But this was followed by Lord Chen's lightning-fast reaction. He turned around and chopped Mr. Bai down. Using lies to get at other people is not praise. This phrase is from scientific texts, mocking the guile of a mere scholar. What nonsense. Chen suspected him all along, so that test was to lower his defenses. Mr. Bai recovered in seconds. Everyone needs to be on their guard. It's an anomaly. The anomaly decided that if it was so easily figured out, then it would have to deal with Lord Chen and his men. He started with the weakest. But this weak warrior was able to slit the anomaly's throat in an instant. Could it be that the anomaly is so weak? But Lord Chen warned everyone to be vigilant. If anyone starts acting strangely, they should immediately move away from him. This anomaly deliberately let itself be attacked. Anomalies don't die. If they are destroyed or killed, they will be reborn in another form. Its method of rebirth involves using another living being as a replacement. Chen. His men can't attack the anomaly, otherwise they will just kill each other. So they only have to stand there and take the blows. Once the anomaly revives, everyone must move back. The Lord decided that he could deal with the anomaly himself. It's been a while, but the anomaly is still not showing up. It seems that Lord Chen has been fooled. The anomaly has escaped. We need to immediately report this to Lord Li and Lord Qing. We also need to print the entire city. Search every house for humanoid Eribai Shensheng. Meanwhile, everything went smoothly for Jiang. The medicinal effects of the cognition of basics had cleansed his spiritual meridians. The technique of knowing the basics directs the flow of pure qi through all spiritual points. It also immediately completes the main heavenly cycle within the body. For Jiang, the technique of knowing the basics had been a second-order technique for a long time, absolutely easy. Thus, the cognition of the basics was complete. Jian had achieved the effect he wanted. Suddenly, Jian sensed Tai Qin's will. After his breakthrough, Tai Qin would no longer have a chance. He must have decided to go for a desperate counterattack. Fighting is useless. The enemy used the Heaven Soul destructive array technique. Jian had expected this, so he had set up an array beforehand, using all of his low-level banners against the Tai Qin. The power of this array might be at the entry level of basic cognition, but it was perfect for targeting divine consciousness. It was more than enough to destroy Tai Qin's will. Although Jian was prepared for it, this moment was indeed the most critical. Scattering his attention on suppressing the Tai Qin's will was his limit. From further interference, he might not only fail with the knowledge of the basics, but also face a backlash. Jian hopes his relatives won't let anyone in this time. Suddenly, a manager comes up to his sis and says that they just received an urgent order. They urgently need to burn another batch of goods. So they can't let Jian use this oven any further and ask the girl to tell her brother to get out as soon as possible. But it won't work that way. Yesterday, the manager arranged for the brother to rent this furnace for a whole 10 days. That's because the manager hasn't had any orders lately. Now, they got a big order, so the guys have to vacate it. The manager explained that they only have 2 ovens, so if one's occupied, they can't complete the order. He thought he could talk to Brother John himself. The SS told him not to do that, not to stop the brother in any way. But the manager didn't listen to the girl and ordered 2 of his subordinates to open the oven, and the girl was moved so she wouldn't get in the way. The manager didn't understand what this kid was doing inside the kiln. Renting a kiln to fire and then locking himself in there, what kind of weirdo would do that? When the 2 assistant managers wanted to open the door, the girl threw a jug in front of them to protect Brother John. The manager thought it was a very impertinent act. The girl realizes that this is property. If she refuses to obey, she should have her hand chopped off. Sis in response shouted only that the manager does not dare to interfere with the brother, Jian Immortal. If they spoil his plans, will they cope with the consequences? But no one believed the girl. None of these 3 had ever seen an immortal, and her brother is a simple redneck. Definitely can't be one. The manager ordered not to listen to the girl and deal with her, but the assistants were scared. The manager said that the guy was strange. Why would someone lock himself in the furnace? Then the manager, in order not to fight with the little girl anymore, agreed to give them another day, but tomorrow they have to vacate the place. These guys scared the little sister to death, she cried, and asked for Brother Feng to come out soon and for Xiaotian to come back as well. While Xiaotian was walking around the city, he noticed that there were a lot of soldiers. Suddenly, he came across Lord Chen, who told his brother that the curfew had been announced earlier. The whole city was sealed off for inspection, while Xiaotian was still wandering around. Suddenly, Lord Li appeared and told Chen that he searched the northern district, still no news. The eastern district was also almost finished. Most likely Bai Xianshen had already left the city. If he was a demonic cultivator, he would be easier to find. But Eri is unpredictable and troublesome. Well, at least they already have information thanks to Lord Chen. Finding Eri in just one day, the reputation of a ghost constable pays off. Lord Chen said that even if he hadn't found Eri, the anomaly would have revealed itself. Depending on the day Chen killed Eri, he could have revived much further away and then quietly escaped. But instead, he chose to appear right in front of them, openly presenting himself as Eri. Then he did nothing, just died and escaped again. This behavior is suspicious. Chen thinks he has a completely different objective. Lee wondered if Chen was overthinking things. Even if Eri had intelligence, they wouldn't behave so cunningly. In any case, this was the first time Lord Lee had heard of an Eri taking on human form. But this was also the first time Chen was encountering this. Even in the Eri suppression department, he had never heard of humanoid Eri. Meanwhile, the furnace manager brought Shuqiu there, telling him that that man had closed himself in the furnace, and he thought it was suspicious, so he reported it. His companion called him an immortal. She even threatened the manager and his assistants. The manager introduced Shuqiu as a real immortal. Let's see if the girl could continue to pretend right in front of the deity. Shuqiu sensed the pure qi from the furnace, and thought that the fugitive was definitely hiding inside, ordering them to break open the entrance to the furnace. But the sister stopped them, saying that Brother Zhang is not a bad man and is doing something very important there, so he should not be disturbed. Xiaoten arrived at that moment. He had been walking for a long time because he had gotten lost in these tangled roads. When he saw that his sister was being held, and the furnace was being broken into, he decided to help his sister. Running up to Shuqiu, he punched the immortal in the face with his fist, which was insolent on his part. Shuqiu immediately retaliated against Xiaotian with a Tianlan technique punch. Xiaotian saw Shuqiu's hand and realized that this guy belonged to the Tianlan sect. Now he would fight this guy to the end. Just by this time, Lord Li felt a huge spiritual energy that was emitted from the direction of the furnaces. When Lord Li arrived at the place, he thought that here was another one of the Tianlan sect. How dare they show up in Liuzhou? But his little sister stopped him, saying that it was some misunderstanding. Her brother was not a pure cultivator. They had escaped from the Tianlan sect, but when brother came out, he would prove it. But Lord Li felt the spiritual energy was too concentrated. There was nothing to prove, no matter what kind of relationship they had before. Once one enters the path of pure, he becomes a slave of the Tao fruit. Having entered is nothing more than a portable seed. Cultivators of the pure are much more dangerous than addicts. Sis again tried to prove that it wasn't true, and asked her to wait for her brother to come out. He was busy with something very important inside. When he came out, this misunderstanding would resolve itself. At this moment, Lord Li grabbed his sister's throat, thinking that she had not awakened yet either. But Shuqiu asked the Lord to let the girl go. She is a mere mortal, but the Lord said that she is a seed raised by a pure qi cultivator. These seeds are trained from birth. If they don't see a so-called immortal, they worship evil, and they are not easily awakened. In Liuzhou, many people are deceived and taken into the Tianlan sect territory as seeds. These seeds are mortal, they are hard to detect, but they promote everything thinking that they are helping their immortal to save people. Therefore, when encountering stubborn seeds, Li immediately kill them, otherwise they can harm the people of Liuzhou. Shuqiu thought this nonsense was nonsense. She was just temporarily blinded, and asked the Lord to let her go. But the Lord didn't listen to Shuqiu and decided to attack Lord Chen's aid. He decided to give him another chance. Would Shuqiu hinder him further? At this point, Zhang's cultivation was already coming to an end. He was about to come out of the furnace. The situation was heating up, and Lord Li was already squeezing his little sister's neck very hard. He almost decapitated her. But Jan's cultivation came to an end, and he broke out of the furnace without letting the Lord do what he was about to do. Brother John saved little sister. I didn't let the Lord do what he was about to do to little sister. Lord Li really stands firm, steadfastly believing that John is a pure qi cultivator. Sis apologized to Zhang. She was afraid that she had messed up his case. But he replied that thanks to the two of them, he had successfully completed the foundation formation stage. The sister had an injured larynx and could not speak, so Jan asked her to take her to an inn and let her rest, and he would take care of it here. A thick, pure energy reeked from Jan. If he was a non-evil cultivator from Tyson, then who? Lord Li didn't want to listen at all. Well, Jan didn't really want to tell, because if he did, it would go too easy. He used the jade sword that ripples waves, a single imageless refining hero-transformed jade. But Lord Li against this technique. He used the splitting of the Soul City Defender Immortal City Defender art. Of course, this didn't help him at all, and Jan lunged forward and went behind the enemy's back and struck him. After that, Jan used the technique of the Great Jade Sword Art, the unified imageless purification hero-transformed jade. He asked the Lord if how he felt when he was forcefully humiliated, what kind of feelings he felt. At this moment, the Lord used the City Defender Soul Cell technique, a skill of the immortal art of the City Defender, to attack Jiang. Brother realized that the spiritual perception did not sense the outside world. Everything was cut off. Is it really the Black Soul fusion? Lord Li has seen all three great purification techniques. But this kind of bluish sword he sees for the first time. This is a new technique after the divine guidance realm. Against Lord Li, Zhang's technique was useless. His souls don't take damage from fire, ball strikes, and other direct attacks. But Li couldn't do anything against Zhang either. What's the point? These spirits don't have any attacking abilities at all, even if they catch up to him. But these spirits were 6 at first, and now it was already 9. As long as they were in Liu Shou, the Lord could summon them indefinitely. In this cage, Jan would have nowhere to escape sooner or later. Jan had no intention of escaping, but once he touched a part of the city guardian's soul, that power began to eat away at him. He had to become food for the city guardian. There are not 1,000, but hundreds of followers of the path of the great purity, who have died at the hands of the Lord. Such is the fate of those who dare to boil away the evil in Liu Shou. But Jan fooled Lord Li and jumped out from behind his back. If the Lord dares to release even a crumb of that part of the soul of the guardian of the city, Brother will cut him down in an instant. Brother John had been using the fake body all this time to fool the enemy and buy some time. The Lord's mistake was that he still thought that the brother was a follower of the path of great purity. Xin Shengnan came to Lord Li's rescue. She used the Immortal Jade Purity technique, soul destruction, spirit scattering. When Zhang saw the girl, she asked him if he missed her, his teacher. Jan fell under her spell of soul dispel and spirit dispel. Now he is trapped in an illusory nightmare. Soul dissipation and spirit dispelling makes a person experience the worst fear of their life. A normal person will not distinguish illusion from reality and can stay trapped in it for hours. But this was not the case. Jan immediately attacked the girl and asked her to break the spell. She made him remember something he didn't want to. If she didn't break the spell, that Jan wouldn't be deterred. Soul dispelling and spirit dispelling held him back for just a moment. What a powerful mind he had. Then laughing over a dried-up grave would hardly work either. The girl used the spirit summoning technique. The soul attraction and spirit condensation failed instantly. How is this possible? Is what he fears so powerful that even illusion is unable to hold it back? Jan decided that he had had enough of these guys. He had originally just wanted to teach them a little lesson, but since they were so stubborn and would not listen to reason, he would have to send them to the guilty world. Those who were previously subjected to soul dispelling and spirit dispersal even after coming out of the illusion were so frightened that they couldn't move. And this man is able to maintain a fierce attack. How unyielding his will is. At the moment when the girl was already captured and almost killed by Zhang, Lord Chen came over and apologized and asked to stop the battle. Chen of the Department of Undead Affairs. These two are his colleagues. On the way here, his subordinates had already informed Chen of what had happened. Chen is sure that there was a misunderstanding here and asked Zhang to stop the attack. He also asked Mr. Qin to remove the spell on Zhang. Chen understood that his brother had no intention to kill. He only wanted to teach him a lesson. Finally, this evening, there was someone who was smart enough not to attack Jan for what he was doing in the furnace. After a while, the boys were already gathered around their sister, who was feeling better. If no one had intervened, Jan would have just processed all the century-old medicinal herbs into different pills, but that was fine. Centennial herbs, even in the form of lotions, would be effective enough for Xiaolin. In 2 days, she would be fine. Zhang understood that Mr. Li was being too categorical. Shucho was also a cultivator of the path of purity, but there are exceptions to every rule. This young man hadn't seriously harmed anyone from the start. That was enough to prove that he wasn't practicing evil. Plus, when Chen apologized, he said it would be a drunken night at the drunken pavilion and asked the guy to come so Chen could apologize officially. Looks like this fight was his first introduction to the cultivators of this world. Tomorrow might be a chance to learn more about the local realities. Jan arrived in the forest to ask Yu Yui where the law spirit being was here recently. It seems Yu Yui knows a lot of things. The essence of cultivation is to take from heaven and earth, no matter the medicinal plant, spiritual energy, or spiritual ore, it's all the essence of heaven and earth. Therefore, cultivators are rejected by heaven and earth, and to form an inner core, one must take the origin of heaven and earth to conceal oneself. Only in this way can the path of cultivation continue. After the cave heaven stage, when one's own cave is opened, one can separate from heaven and earth and become independent. A law spirit being is the originally born spirit beings of this world, imbued with the particles of the origin of heaven and earth. Pure energy allows one to progress very quickly in cultivation. Although right now, Zhang was only at the beginning foundation stage, but from the energy accumulation stage 1 to the 13th stage, he had only spent 5 days. In his previous life, Jan had been doing this for 2 years. so less than a month and he would reach the peak of foundation laying. In order to form the inner core, one must prepare in advance. Yui must guard the entrance of the cave. No snakes or insects can come near it. Next, it's time to do the main business. Using divine consciousness, Jan carefully inspects the entire body except for the inner energy, transformed from pure energy, which hides the hard-to-remove will of Taikin. There is no problem in the body, but what happened to him the day he lost his mind is completely abnormal. There is definitely something strange about him, if not in his body, then in his soul. The highest level of technique capable of exploring the soul, only 3 books. The golden chapter of true death of mixed origin requires the accumulation of a large amount of death energy. The spirit absorption method and machine requires the maturation of baby Yuan to explore the soul. The small path spiritual eye records are much more difficult. You need to enhance your spiritual roots, have all 5 elements, and then still requires yin-yang mystic energy. The most likely one is that Jan is practicing the golden chapter of true death of mixed origin. Death energy is a natural and innate evil energy. Jan doesn't know if it is in this world, but he will ask that water balloon later. The method of turning into pure phase jade has already been learned to the 2nd level. Jan can use 2 jade sword techniques and the jade doppelganger technique. Although the jade sword technique is not very powerful, the jade doppelganger technique is very useful and a great way to save a life. Today proved that the choice of this technique was the right one. The training system in this world is strange and treacherous. Not knowing the details is easy to fall into a trap. Tonight, one must still learn the technique of hiding the breath. A body with pure energy easily attracts trouble. By the way, the spine, bandaged arm, ribs are 3 human remains that were given by a blind Taoist elder. That elder called them bloody tools, special power. But each has a different purpose, clearly taken from the same person. The elder gave the bloody tool. If John didn't take them, the elder was going to use force, clearly pursuing other purposes. At first, Jan wanted to throw them away on the way, but upon close inspection, it turned out that the 3 remains didn't seem to have any tampering on them. Right now, his methods are still imperfect. The Heaven Source Battle Sword method is difficult to perfect, and needs at least 16 flying swords to form the most basic sword formation. Therefore, Jan uses ordinary iron bought from the city and melts down 3 magic weapons for temporary use. Meanwhile, Bai was talking to his assistant about some creature whose remains were scattered all over the world. Bai had collected them just to resurrect it. The aide warned that if the creature was fully resurrected, they would not be able to control it. Besides, this verse has something to do with the target. Bai said that the relationship is direct. They want to summon a heavenly lord. A little later in this county government, Lord Chen tried to cure Shu Chu with the soul fading pill. It works by destroying the soul, stimulating the mind and allowing it to retain consciousness. Shukyo now takes it once every 10 days just to suppress the lust for the Dao fruit. If this continues, he won't last a year, turning into an idiot. When Chen returns to the ghost suppression department, he will look for other ways for Shukyo. Shukyo told Chen that that guy with the surname Li was a real bastard. He even wanted to kill that mortal girl and Shukyo couldn't stop him. So he immediately rushed to Chen. That person is definitely not a good person. Lord Li, cultivator of the city guard. Everything he does is for the sake of all the people of the city, and Shu Qiu and Chen have no right to judge him. Lord Li, cultivator of the city guard. To become one must be selfless and fearless. Each of them was selected from thousands of ordinary people throughout Chung country. Since childhood, they are raised by the government, and when the time comes, they inherit the power of a city guardian. And even if they do strange or cruel things, one cannot completely condemn them. In their minds, the protection of the people is paramount. They are altars of sacrifice dedicated to others. Since Shukyo has been following Chung, he has never seen a city as peaceful and safe as Liu City. Although it is only a backwater county center and the people here are poor, most of them still live in peace and prosperity. All of this is due to Mr. Li alone. He guards Luzhou City with his life. The cultivators of the city guard receive power from the guardian of the city, but at the same time, they have to use their bodies to feed the fractional souls of the guardian. They constantly suffer physically. None of them even live to be 10 years old after becoming a city guardian cultivator. Chen heard that Mr. Li has been guarding Luzhou for 5 years, and thinks that by this point, he only has a thin peel left on his body. Therefore, one should not have a bias towards Mr. Li because of a single incident. He has done too much. Chen met with Zhang in the morning to apologize for yesterday's events. He also asked what kind of cult Zhang was from. Jan replied that he was cultivating the true immortality teachings. Chen's colleague, a local guard. He is also from the Spirit Control Department that is sent to protect the areas in the counties. He just heard that Zhang was cultivating the true teachings and immediately attacked. The thing is that malicious cultivators from the true teachings have infiltrated everywhere. The guards hate them to the core. Chen thought that Zhang was from another country if he hadn't even heard of the planned cultivators of the true teachings. On the other hand, it didn't matter where Jan was from, as long as he wasn't related to evil intent cultivators. Malicious true doctrine cultivators worship the Lord of the true doctrine. There are more than 10 such sects. There is one heavenly clan sect not far from here. Jan was curious how cultivators here were divided into right and evil intent cultivators. Chen explained that naturally the division is based on whether they oppress the common people. The government has decreed that only sects that oppress the people are malicious. Cultivators should care about the safety of the commoners regardless of past or present life. It is impossible. It seems the government is not so honorable. Jan thinks that if they value the people so much, why don't they eliminate these malefactors? It would be more appropriate. It's easier said than done in the country. Not only do the malevolent cults of the true teachings do evil, and the Spirit Control Department doesn't have many people. Furthermore, these sects, if not completely destroyed, would quickly revive. Jan had many questions. Chen realized that he really didn't seem to know much about the Chung state. John didn't understand why there was only a Spirit Control Department in the country of cultivators officials. Why the royal family didn't help. At this moment, Xiaotian was walking around the city looking for food. The food in the county town is not bad. Suddenly, he heard shouting and quarreling. He saw an old man being thrown out of the establishment, threatening to take his life if he returned. The bandits from the establishment said that the old man would not return his money and he was living in illusions. He did not realize who he was dealing with. The Black Dragon had such authority that even the county magistrate was inferior to him. It was clear that the old man wanted to hire the Black Dragon gang, but the gang members didn't expect that this old man could actually raise so much money to hire them. The Black Dragon Panda took away the old man's money and said that this money was the old man's payment for living, after which they kicked him out. When one of the gang members turned around to leave, the old man grabbed his leg and said that he didn't need the money, but he had to help the old man. This made the Black Dragon gang member very angry, and he wanted to hit the old man, but Xiaotian rushed into the incident, grabbed the old man, and ran away. In the meantime, Chen suggested that Jian join the Department of Controlling Uncleanness. Chen saw that Zhang is not too familiar with Chung country yet, but some circumstances, although not secret, he still can't divulge the information to outsiders. If Brother Zhang joins their department for the control of uncleanness, things will be different. Then they will become comrades, and Jan will definitely tell everything he knows. Jan was surprised that joining the evil control agency was so easy for him. Chen explained that it wasn't that simple, but he couldn't promise to accept Jan into the agency, but he was only acting as a reference. In order to join, he would have to go to the nearest branch of the Beast Control Department, record Jan's data, and check his cultivation methods to make sure they didn't threaten ordinary people. It still sounded too simple to Zhang. Judging from his experience, those above would never give away good opportunities to those below them lightly. The members of the Unclean Control Department must have some kind of special shackles or responsibilities, which couldn't be called a good position. If Chen is so easy to accept outsiders, then the dangers they have to face must be serious. When one becomes a member of the Department for the Control of Uncleanness, one becomes obligated to deal with problems concerning all kinds of uncleanness. Every month, one must complete at least one assignment. Zhang understood that the tasks assigned by his superiors could not be refused. Then he wanted to refuse Lord Chen's offer. But Chen asked Jan not to jump to conclusions, although the conditions were really harsh and restricted his freedom. But this position had its advantages. Otherwise, only free cultivators would not join. For example, after completing a task, Johnny was given a score, and these earned points can be exchanged for many things that ordinary people do not even dare to dream of. The main thing is, of course, the longevity pills. They significantly increase the life expectancy of the cultivator if the employee has enough strength to continue to survive on the tasks that are given to him. Then, in the end, he can really become immortal. In addition, the department also has very powerful techniques that are said to be able to even resurrect the dead. In short, the Office of Evil Control can do just about anything. As long as Jan had enough points, he could achieve anything he wanted. Jan reflected that it was too early to say Sunday of the Dead, but longevity pills, that's very interesting. He thought the locals weren't very strong in alchemy. In the past world of Zhang, Longevity pills and methods were the envy of even the highest practitioners. But in this world, even low-ranked cultivators were given them out. Suppose the local alchemists are really good, but where do they get the century-old herbs that are usually used to prepare longevity pills from, especially in such a wilderness? Jan really needs to sort out the information about this world as soon as possible and adjust his previous ideas about it. I have to agree. Apparently, the Department of Evil Control is really short of people. If only Chen was so eloquent, or if the recommendation of a newcomer implies some kind of reward for the recommender. Chen admitted that he was ashamed, but it was true. Recommending a newcomer also gives points, but on the other hand, Chen is confident in his gut. Zhang is not an ordinary person. Considering Zhang's ability, him joining the Evil Control Department will be a boon to the people of Cheng Country. There's no lie in those words. Besides, Brother Zhang should not call Lord Chen a fellow believer. In truth, he is not a cultivator at all, but an ordinary mortal who was just lucky enough to find harmony with this unholy blade. Chen used to be a simple chief of guards. It was only through the blessing of this blade that he was honored to speak with Zhang. Jan wondered what this unholy blade was in essence, and why its forms and abilities differed so much. Chen and Jan's conversation was interrupted by cries for help from the street, where a boy was running after his mother with an axe. The boy was shouting at his mother to run, and she kept running, not thinking that since she was the boy's mother, he wouldn't kill her. Any attempts by the mother to say anything, the boy shut her up. He shouted that he had wanted to kill the old woman for a long time. When the boy swung the axe at his mother, the axe was stopped by the hand of Lord Chen, who had come to help the old woman. On the other side of the city, the Black Dragon Gang was looking for Xiao Tianyu, and the beggar old man. The brother and the old man were trapped in an alley. Xiaoten and the old man were lucky that the Black Dragon Gang members were not very smart. They thought that the brother and the old man had escaped through the other end of the alley. When the gang members left, Xiaotian asked the old man how he managed to run into those bastards. The old man replied that the Black Dragon Gang had cheated the old man out of 400 liang of silver. It happened 5 years ago, when the old man's village was overrun with evil. He was the only one saved, and that was only because he had gone to gather herbs that day. The old man immediately ran to Luzhou for help, but as soon as they heard about the evil, the city government immediately waved the old man away. The old man knew that his fellow villagers had probably already died, but he still wanted to go back there to at least bury them. However, he then heard that the authorities had asked the Immortals to unhitch that area, so the old man couldn't even go back there. Since then, he had been searching for people who could help him with this. In the end, he came across a gang of black dragons. They said they had a way to help the old man, but demanded 400 liang of silver. For the sake of this, the old man took up his old trade again. In these 5 years, he had been in more danger while gathering herbs than in his previous life. He gave all the money from the sale of the herbs to the Black Dragon, but in all 5 years, he had only scraped up what liang. Fortunately, yesterday, he met John and the guys and was finally able to collect the 400 liang he needed. But the Black Dragon showed his true colors and refused to fulfill his part of the agreement. Xiaoten realized that meant it was all just so that the old man could bury his fellow villagers. The old man was a man whose bones were already creaking. Would he dream of anything more than that when he was one step away from death? Well, there's nothing to be done about it now. I'll have to accept it, the old man thought. Xiaotian was angry. The old man had spent 5 years of his life and 400 liang of silver on them. It was unfair, so just a guy could not accept it. Just at this moment, the Black Dragon Gang found the brother with the old man. What was Xiaotian going to do to the gang? In parallel, at the other end of the city, Chen captured the boy attacking his mother. He will have to temporarily detain this child. When asked by Zhang what's going on here, Chen replied that nothing supernatural. They had already heard rumors that in this town is a trait of evil, which make children violent. Chen thought that only yesterday they found Mr. Bai. And today, a child is already trying to kill his own mother right on the street. The condition of the local children is getting worse. We can't delay. We must catch him as soon as possible. Suddenly, this boy broke out of Chen's hands. He was enveloped by the evil and turned into some kind of creature. In the boy's mouth appeared a kind of eye, which when looking at him sucked the life out of the man. So the creature that appeared sucked the life out of his mother. Chen warned Jan to close his eyes and not to look at the eye that appeared in the boy's mouth. Using his sixth sense, Chen was able to overpower the creature by slicing it in half. Apparently, the most dangerous thing about these creatures is their eyes. Their bodies are not that strong. Only why this child suddenly underwent such a change. When Jan and Chen looked around, They noticed that this kind of attack had spread to almost the entire city. Many children had turned into the same creatures. At the same time, Mr. Lee also appeared, who was also trying to deal with these creatures that had appeared in the city. Suddenly, affected by the evil children in the city began to turn into monsters. You need to quickly figure out what's wrong. Under no circumstances cannot look into the eyes and the mouth of these monsters. Otherwise, people will instantly suck out all the life force. These children who have become the spawn of evil kill just at a terrifying rate, and avoid eye contact with their eyes is also incredibly difficult. The usual guards of the city are useless. To restrain their actions is also unrealistic. It remains only to destroy all of them. This is a forced measure, akin to cutting off one's own limb to save the rest of the body. We need to find this Mr. Bai immediately. Chen assumed that the evil one had left the city long ago. It would be very difficult for them to find it now, so Chen thought that in such a situation, they had better join forces and stabilize the situation in the city first. Jan saw the path where this uncleanness originates from. If they want to find the source of what is happening, it is probably in that direction outside the city. Chen was surprised that John was able to trace the location of this source of evil so easily. But Lord Li still didn't trust Jan. After all, they still hadn't established the identity of this person. Suddenly he was in cahoots with that Mr. Bai, and this was all their trap. All Jan did was turn around and say that they could disbelieve him. He didn't care, since the others here had enough problems that Jan would just go his own way. But then Chen took responsibility and said that he trusted Brother John. He also asked the guy to help them solve this problem. The Undead Control Office would probably give a high rank to this task, so the reward of points would also be significant. Then, even if Brother Hang didn't want to join the Unclean Control Office, Chen would be willing to give Zhang his share of the reward as compensation. Jan refused the offer, saying that he had more important things to do. He had experienced more dangers in just a little over 10 days in this world than he had experienced in 10 years in his previous life. Jan has not even seen the local embodiment of the laws of nature yet, and here again flip into such a situation. He cannot continue to take such risks. Chen has a lot of power. Jan thought he would be an asset in this case. It's a pity, but the matters with the Unclean Control Department should be postponed for now. First, Jan needs to get those two out of here, and then we'll see. Immediately after this conversation, Miss Chin also appeared in the line of sight. John agreed to help with the matter, but the others needed to wait so John could get the two juniors out of here first. Lord Li said that if Zhang was going to help, he needed to start acting immediately. The younger one's Li would take care of himself. Yesterday, Li had already found the place where they were staying and sent his doppelganger there. At this time, Mr. Bai and his assistant were in the forest watching the creature they had created. Mr. Bai's assistant doubted this creature. He doubted that this creature would not be resurrected if it continued to draw life force like this. Bai explained that he had only infected about 2,000 children in the city. They should be strong enough to handle something like this. Well then, what was the point of all this, and what was the connection to the deity's summoning? Nothing is done in an instant. Mr. Bai had his own reasons for this. His assistant needed to show more patience. By this time, Jan, Chen, and Qin had already found their enemy and were able to take them by surprise and attack. The Jan and these two immediately recognized those people in the village where the husband was hiding from his wife in the house. Chen turned his attention to the uncleanness that Mr. Bai and his accomplice had created. Qin was immediately warned not to look into the eyes of this creature under any circumstances, not one of her eyes. Qin was sure that this was not an unclean creature. In this creature, she recognized an Earth Immortal. She had seen records of this creature in the teachings. This Earth Immortal there was called a life-giving old woman. He looks like an illusory being, and his entire body is covered with scarlet eyes. 1,000 years ago, this immortal caused great harm to the common people, so it was later sealed by one of the city rulers from the imperial family. Later, the ruler dismembered his body into hundreds of pieces and buried them in different places all over Chung State. It seems that these two somehow managed to put all the hundreds of pieces together. Resurrecting an Earth Immortal is a heinous crime. The shenanigans of these two must be stopped. Lord Chen warned Zhang that the undead possess immortal bodies, so they are not so easy to finish them off. Instead of trying to kill them, it was more effective to restrict their movements. Baisan had already been severely wounded by John, so they only had the second one to deal with. But Baisan's associate decided not to get into a fight. It would bore him to death, especially since what was happening here didn't concern him. He just decided to leave. Qin felt that there was no point in them specifically chasing after this person. She had already activated the help talisman. After noticing their signal, practitioners from the nearest uncleanness control department would come to their aid. Right now, their main concerns were that Earth Immortal. They can't deal with such a creature. They need to return to the city to report the situation. Although Jan couldn't look directly at that Earth Immortal, his spiritual consciousness can clearly see it. What is it? It has wrapped its tentacles around the pointer, and this pointer is overflowing with the very chi that John noticed in the city. So, this creature has subjected the children of the city to transformation using this pointer as an intermediary. It's a sinister chi capable of awakening evil in human hearts. Its properties are similar to the demonic chi from the past world John lived in. But judging from the reactions of the two of them, this immortal of the earth must be extremely dangerous. And Zhang doesn't want to rush headlong into every danger. It's better to go back to the city first. It seems that this Earth Immortal hasn't regained consciousness yet, so let it stay in that state for now. It's better for Jan and the others to stay away from such creatures for now. Suddenly, Chen casually looked at the eye of this creature that wasn't called an Earth Immortal. At this time, another creature was eating the remains of a killed wolf in the forest, not far away from the scene. His meal was interrupted by a talisman of help. He learned that the talisman had been activated 80 li from where he was. It's not that far to look. Also at this time, Lord Li found Xiaotian's brother and an old man who were fighting off the creatures attacking them. Lord Li said that Xiaotian's sister was waiting for him at the county government office, so he sent him there, and he took care of the unclean creatures nearby. At the same moment, one of the bandits who was looking for the old man with the guy attacked Xiaotian from behind, but the old man covered Tian with him. While the old man was dying, he remembered that this lousy Tian looked a lot like his grandson. Tian screamed and begged the old man not to die. His brother is immortal. He will definitely be able to save the old man. What is wrong with him? Why does everyone who happens to be near him end up like this, thought the guy. Xiaotian thought that everyone he knew was suffering because of him. He was just a burden to everyone. At this moment, in order not to lose the old man, he bit his finger and made a deal with the old hermit they met in the forest. The bandit who attacked the old man from behind wanted to take advantage of the moment and get out of town, while that black creature killed all the evil in the neighborhood. But he was stopped by a creature that looked like the same old man in the forest where he was going. This creature led the bandit back into Xiaotian's hands. At this moment, it was clear. The boy had just embarked on the path of comprehending supreme purity. At this time, Chen on the other end was trying to figure out what to do, for he had met the gaze of this being called an Earth Immortal. Lady Qin told him to close his eyes, and calmly and without panic, he simply walked away from the creature without attacking it. But the body of Mr. Chen's daughter suddenly fell out of the creature. She was crying out for her daddy. Mr. Chen asked Jan to move his sword closer to his daughter. Mrs. Qin asked not to do that, it's a trap. But the creature threw the girl's body on the ground for Chen to fall for it and rushed to save his daughter. Chen of course fell for it and almost paid for it with his life, but Jan managed to save him with the Jin technique. In order to evade the immortal creature's attack, Jan had to use the immaculate pure formless jade clone technique. He used this technique in order to switch places with his true body and escape the attack faster. Brother Chen should have realized that this was by no means his real daughter, but this girl was in so much pain that he wanted to help. When Chen saw that creature reincarnate again and again in his daughter's face, he decided that it was insolence and used the unholy blade technique to attack the monster. How dare this creature use the appearance of Chen's daughter? It was unforgivable to him. With the unholy blade technique, Mr. Chen tried to chop down the Earth Immortal. But this is an Earth Immortal after all. Even in its unfinished form, it is much stronger than their team. Now they need to urgently notify the higher-ups. Let the masters of the second stage and above deal with it. When Jan and his companions tried to leave the battlefield, the Earth Immortal blocked their path again. It was difficult to get away from the enemy with their eyes closed. Jan had to use the supreme artifact blade of tempered bone. It was the blade that Jan had gotten as a gift from that hermit. Jan could see the creature with his eyes closed. It seems that this creature is of the infectious type. Any attack from them provokes a fierce backlash. In addition, its red light has tremendous destructive power. Even Jan can't really resist it. Under no circumstances should one fall under the attack. At this moment, the Earth-ranked master of the Evil Control Department's Earth-ranked master, Mr. Wang Yu, had arrived at the battlefield. The master immediately recognized Chen and asked him if he had sent a signal for help. Couldn't they deal with that huge eye? Wang Yu named his price. He asked for thousands of merit points to help Chen's team defeat this creature. Unfortunately, Chen had barely more than 100 points at this moment. The price was too high for him to pay it off. In that case, Chen must have to deal with this creature by himself, with the help of Zhang and Qin. As Master Wang Yu turned around to leave the battlefield, an immortal of the earth loomed in front of him. This being showed Master Wang Yu his mother, who had died over a decade ago. Master didn't like that this creature decided to play on his feelings. His mother was the only family member in his life, and this immortal dared to imitate her appearance. Since Wang didn't consider himself a little brat, something like this was unable to shake his spirit. Something like this should only work on children. When the Earth Immortal decided to attack Master Wang Yu, Chen shouted that this creature should not be touched. It was contagious. Wang Yu then decided to assume his true form and agreed to help Chen and take on this foul creature. But he asked Chen for 500 merit points and gave him 2 months. Wang Yu is a master of the Earth-ranked Evil Control Department, and it is said that he had merged with an evil in the past, which caused him to take on this appearance. The effects of the fusion didn't end there. He requires a long special treatment in the department, so when it comes to merit points, he becomes incredibly greedy. Despite this, the master is really very strong. At least the lower stage of the second stage, perhaps he can really help the guys. Since one can't approach the creature, Wang Yu decided to attack it with ranged attacks. At this time, Mr. Li began to realize that it seemed that Mr. Chen was currently fighting someone fierce. It had been a long time since the 3 incense candles had burned out. In that case, Li shouldn't expect them to quickly deal with the problems there. Liuzhou City wasn't huge, but in Li's current state, he would only be able to use 12 of his spiritual incarnations. If he overdid it, his body would simply crumble into ashes. So far, he had only managed to destroy about 1,000 of the evil spawns. The rest had already scattered all over the city. According to a rough estimate through his doppelgangers, the number of victims had already exceeded 10,000, which was already 2/10 of Liuzhou's population. Against these creatures, simple guards of the city are completely useless. Everything has to do himself. If it goes on like this, by the time Li finally disposed of his uncleanness, Liuzhou will probably die or suffer more than half of the ordinary people. There were only 53 people among the 300 people who passed the test. They had the gift of holding the incarnation of Chenghuang within them. They would soon become revered servants of Chenghuang. This was the basis of the existence of the Cheng Kingdom, the department to control the uncleanness officials in the imperial court, or the imperial court itself. Why was it that in those times when the uncleanness rampaged right in the streets of the cities, and evil cultivators rampaged in search of power, the Cheng Kingdom still remained unshakable? It was only because of the Chenghuang servants, millions and millions of their predecessors, who stood up to protect the most dangerous places throughout the Cheng Kingdom. The Cheng country needed such people, the common people needed such people. In the future, they were to be the shield of the kingdom and a support for the people. Their lives are filled with nobility and greatness, and their purpose is to protect everything in the Cheng Kingdom. By sacrificing their lives, they were gaining justice. Without noticing, Li began to cherish his life more, afraid of losing it so that he could do more for his people. Meanwhile, Jan carried his companions farther and farther away from the city. First, they need to get out of the sight of this earthly immortal. If they return to the city now, they would only bring trouble upon its inhabitants. In the ancient records that Mrs. Qin read, there was nothing but the origin of the old life-giving woman. They need to distance themselves from this creature and wait for someone else to deal with it. Chen asked everyone not to lose hope no matter what. This Earth Immortal had just awakened. Perhaps Mr. Wang would be able to defeat him. But it was not to be. Immediately after saying this, Mr. Wang overtook Chen's team and flew away. As he ran away, he called Chen's group scum and said that this thing was an unusual beast. They were definitely not telling the truth. Mr. Want didn't want to mess with this creature anymore and threatened that if Chen's group survived, he would deal with them later. At this moment, the foul creature still caught up to Master Wang without giving up trying to gnaw him to death. In such a case, Master Wang should not hold back. Although he himself can't really control the power he has been given. It's the uncleanness that asked for it. After Wang Yu's strike, everything within a radius of 10 LE will be wiped out. And Chen's group was just unlucky to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Let this thing try to survive this. Master Wang Yu believed that after this strike, this thing would still be alive and unharmed after all. It seems that the master did not hit the creature after all, as it appeared right in front of Jiang's eyes before he could close his eyes. The creature began to copy the most important person in his heart again. It is useless to try to escape from it. First, it is necessary to go down to the ground and already there to think up a plan. On the ground, Chen can help the others. But when Chen asked his brother Jan to come down to the ground, he noticed that Jan was frozen when he saw who the old life-giving woman had spawned. Jade Sword Technique. Automatically obtained when mastering the first stage of the flawless, pure formless Jade Technique. It allows you to condense Jade Qi into a sword form. Jade swords have excellent sharpness, but they are not strong enough to shatter when they collide with extremely hard objects. The main advantage of the technique is the low expenditure of spiritual power. The ability to instantly form a ball with the movement of the hand and the instant use of the technique. Jade Clone is a technique automatically obtained by mastering the second stage of the flawless, pure formless Jade Technique. It allows you to condense Jade Qi into a clone of your body. The clones must be formed beforehand and stored inside the body ready to be used. The clone can briefly imitate the appearance of the original and can switch places with it at any time, but the doppelganger cannot be too far away from the original, or it will simply disperse. Tempered Bone Blade is a high-quality artifact forged from the rib of a blood relative. It is able to freely lengthen its blade and multiply it. Due to the nature of the rib, the hardness of the blade is much higher than normal steel, allowing it to be a shield as well as a sword. An unholy sword is an unholy thing in the form of a sword. If an ordinary person picks it up, the sword will bend it to its will, sucking out all the life force of the bearer and controlling his corpse, causing it to kill and absorb the life force of others. Only a very few with a special body structure can resist the parasitization of the wicked sword. Using this sword is tantamount to allowing it to parasitize one's body. Depending on the degree of parasitization, the unholy sword will continuously suck out the life force of the bearer. When parasitized at 10%, it absorbs approximately 1 day of the bearer's life per second. The unholy sword possesses one mouth and one arm. Its mouth can tear apart enemies and devour into living creatures, draining them of their life force, while its hand can overwhelm opponents whose strength is lower than its own, stripping them of all abilities. The life-giving old woman's spawn are ordinary mortals who have been infected by a piece of the life-giving old woman's aura through an unholy ruler, and they become her spawn. They grow an old woman's eye in their mouths, which is used to suck out the life chi of living people and transfer it to the main body. Their arms and legs are incredibly long at birth, allowing them to quickly catch up and catch people. But physically, they are not much different from normal people. The old life-giving woman is an earth immortal. She was dismembered into 100 pieces and sealed in different places. Mr. Bai had put them together since she had just awakened. The old woman was extremely weak and needed a huge amount of life ki from ordinary people. She is able to use the absorbed life chi, materialize an image of the most important person in the heart of whoever met her gaze. The materialized image is controlled by the life-giving old woman and can be blown up by her. The living beings that will be splashed by the life ki from this explosion can also be taken under the old woman's control. The girl the old life-giver had spawned was Jan's apprentice from a previous life. As soon as she saw Jan in front of her, she cried out and rushed to her master to hug him. Teen saw this and tried to stop the girl from hurting Jan, because these creatures explode when touched. John, on the other hand, was using the Jade Purity technique, the Withering Grave Smile, at this time. He wouldn't dare to use the Withering Grave Smile technique on an Earth Immortal, but it's just a materialized image woven from his power after all. So Jan could try to stop it by instantly stripping it of all thoughts. Jan's disciple realized that Qin was trying to attack her from behind and prevented her from approaching her master. This was followed by the girl's attack. It hurt Qin very badly, but John was able to save her. All these years, the girl who was formerly Jan's apprentice had been looking for him. She missed her master so much every second. But now when they met, the master was hugging the other. Qin shouldn't have interfered. Zhang had one plan. He planned to wait for her to approach and touch her so that she would explode. If he couldn't stop her, they would face a real calamity far more formidable than that Earth Immortal. Jan's disciple was still yelling at him. How could he hug Qin in her presence? She wouldn't let Jan do it. Suddenly, Jan approached his disciple and hugged her, thanking her for looking for him for so long. Jan then immediately pushed the girl away and she began to puff up to explode, but was able to overcome the power of the old life-giving woman. This creature infuriated Jan's apprentice, for the girl realized what had happened here. The old life-giver, realizing that she could not make her explode, decided to destroy her. She dared to prevent the reunion of the master and her apprentice. Now the apprentice must wipe the creature to dust. With one powerful blow, the girl was able to dispel the old life-giving woman. She is the highest stage of the second stage, or perhaps even the first stage. Now that the creature was already destroyed, the apprentice thought that no one would interfere with her and the master. But suddenly she began to disappear. Her body began to dissolve, but she had struggled so hard to find her master. She only existed because of the old woman's life-giving power, so by destroying her, she had essentially taken her own life. At this time, Xiao Shadow and the old man were on their way to the old man's village to bury his fellow villagers. Ever since the guy bit off his index finger after reciting that blind Tao elder's mantra in his mind, he began to want to do the same with the rest of his fingers. It was as if he had spent days in the desert without water, and his fingers were pure cool water that he was also waiting for. Then he bit off his index finger, wanting to save this old man, so it means one wish is granted for one finger, but his current state is not what Xiao Tian expected. The guy also remembered Li's words. He called Tian a heretic who had embarked on the vicious path of comprehending supreme purity. If that was indeed the case, then the guy would not be able to stay by his sister and brother's side as a madman. It might cause trouble for them. Xiao Tian will return to his sister when he becomes stronger then. Even if Jan leaves them, he will be able to provide his sister and himself a peaceful life. By that time, Jian and Shaolin had already watched their brother through the crystal ball. He couldn't have traveled so far in such a short period of time. When Zhang asked if he could bring his brother back, his sister said that it was useless. Xiao Tian had been a very independent child since childhood. If he decided something, neither his sister nor grandmother could change his mind. Perhaps we shouldn't worry too much about him. As long as Jan and sister have this water balloon, they will always be able to track him and find out what he is doing. If he is in danger, Jan will intervene. Mr. Li thanked everyone for their help. Even though the city was seriously damaged, it was still protected. Mr. Li also noticed that the guys had brought an earth immortal. Probably due to his unstable state after his recent awakening and severe wounds, he had temporarily fallen into a dream state. Although Chen and his team had clothed him with suppression talismans, but it was unlikely that they would work on the Earth Immortal. They needed to bring him back to the Department of Evil Control immediately. No tagging. Chen had already used the message transmission talisman. The agency would send them reinforcements halfway. They also found unholy artifacts. They are almost inactive. If no one touches them, they are unlikely to pose any threat. One of the artifacts is a wriggling ball of meat. An unclean thing that can't be made to disappear. It appeared on the scattered remains of Master Wang's body nearby. It must be the evil that once merged with him. The second artifact is a ruler. It came from the body of a life-giving old woman, probably the one who subjected those children to the transformation. Jan immediately asked to be able to borrow this item temporarily. Chen was concerned about it, but agreed. It's just that they hadn't figured out how dangerous this foul thing was yet. Jan needed to be careful. Shukyo was frightened that in just half a day, Luzhou City had been destroyed to such an extent. The territory of the Chung Kingdom is huge. There are hundreds of county towns in 12 regions. And in remote counties, this kind of thing happens all over the place. Watching Jan and her sister leave with Chung's squad from above was the already recovered Bai. He never thought that this handful of idiots would be able to deal with an Earth Immortal. Unexpectedly, he thought that the situation would get out of hand and attract several second-stage masters and above. However, nothing terrible happened. His plan remained unchanged. Soon everyone would be rewarded for their efforts. Jan noticed Bai, annoying as dung flies, but he can't kill them, so he will just ignore them. Right now the most important thing for him is cultivation and solving his own problems. Bai realized that Jan had ignored him, but he noticed this guy. He's only at the third stage, but for some reason he reeks of such danger. In one of the villages at this time, a creature was crawling out of the water. Its body had fallen into disrepair. Mortal bodies disintegrate so easily. But in front of him, he saw a girl doing laundry by the river. He thought he would have to turn into a snake, an insect, a rat, or an ant. But he was lucky. When he attacked the girl to take her body from her, he was struck by a sudden blow from behind. Even in the middle of nowhere, an immortal managed to stumble upon such an abomination. It was disgusting. He had ended up here by accident. The girl immediately began to thank the immortal, but he refused and said that he did not need it. Turning around, he began to leave. But suddenly he stopped, looked at the girl. His look was no longer the same as it was before the rescue. It seems that the creature is all in this immortal. But not far from this village, there was already a team of John. They were on their way to hand over the body of the old life-giving woman. Zhang had helped Chen's people a lot. Even Wang Yu died without being able to deal with this Earth Immortal. and in the end, even he was defeated by a person from Jiang's past. Chen is usually not curious, but the identity of that woman really intrigued him. She has incredible strength. Chen was greatly surprised when Jan's brother Jan was thrown into a shiver at the sight of her. Jan even forgot about Chen, although his body is different from a mortal's due to the power of the unholy sword, but still he was bruised badly when Jan lost the power of the sword. Jan told him that that woman's name was Gu Ren. She was a body refinement master who had reached the middle degree of the immortal infant stage. But to be honest, she is able to demonstrate the power of many peak stage immortal infant stage masters. She was the first mentor on the path of immortality. But why did Jan act as if he was seeing an enemy? Such a powerful woman was his mentor, who was Brother Zhang in the past. By the way, we'll have to look for other refinement techniques and ways to immortality. When Jan returns to the department, he's never heard of any immortal baby in his life. Zhang's reaction is due to some silly events from his past. Nothing interesting. It can be left for later, because now need to pay attention to the one who is walking ahead of them to meet. Mr. Chen introduced this person. He was the Honorable Mr. Jin Ju, a direct descendant of the Jin family from the capital. He is also, like the guys, a black rank follower of the black rank of the Unclean Control Department. The department had just sent him to meet them and give them support. Ju greeted everyone. He had received a message from the department. They were originally told to go to Fancheng County to gather there and wait for Chen's group. But as luck would have it, he was nearby, so he decided to arrive first and meet them. But this man already had the same creature that had possessed Mr. Jin at the river when he helped the girl. The girl was yelling, screaming. Because of this, he accidentally drove her head into the ground. She spoiled his mood. She was a country girl, but her body was very seductive. Now it is necessary to dig into the memories of this guy. He must get all the information about this person and understand why it is necessary to meet the convoy accompanying the Earth Immortal. This creature in Master Jin's body thought that if these people with the convoy were able to restrain the Earth Immortal, then there must be very strong personalities among them. It was worth considering a body change. Chen thought that with such a replenishment, the rest of their journey would go smoothly. After catching the Earth Immortal, the rating of this task should be greatly increased. It would be possible to get a lot of longevity pills for his wife and daughter. In Jin's memories, this creature realized that Mr. Chen, the slave of his wife and daughter, was exactly as he was remembered by this Jinju, an ordinary mortal wielding an unholy artifact. Looking at Shaolin, this creature realized that she was a mortal, but his appearance was okay, so he would need to have fun with her later. When he looked at Qin, he found that this girl had a jade purity technique, and her appearance was top-notch. He had never tried a master practicing the jade frequency technique before. He was getting impatient. Sukyo gave off the impression of an idiot. So far, this creature had not seen any truly strong people. How could they even be able to restrain an Earth Immortal? Jun at this time was thinking that traveling with the guys on the wagon was too slow, but the spiritual essence of the laws of nature also does not tolerate haste, so he could just practice on the way. While they were traveling, Zhang took a closer look at that sinister qi emanating from the ruler, and it was definitely suitable for cultivating a true demonic essence technique. Thanks to the sinister qi of that ruler, he would already be able to reach the first stage of this technique today. But first, he needed to scrutinize the oddities with his spiritual power. When the creature turned its attention to Jiang, he realized that he was facing an interesting vessel. He had never heard of such techniques. This type of person was worth watching more closely. Sukyo was just trying to hit on Xiaoling's sister. He wanted to offer her a piece of fried meat and apologize for the incident a few days ago. But when he dared to approach her, all the speech he had prepared in his head seemed to evaporate. He couldn't even string two words together. Qin approached her sister from the other side and asked a question about the water ball that was in the hands of Sister Xiaolin. It's a wandering spring, right? Qin had read about them in ancient texts. A wandering spring is able to observe any corner of this world. It was quite an important unholy artifact under the control of the Unholy Artifact Control Department. However, over a decade ago, it mysteriously disappeared. Henceforth, Sis must not let this artifact appear in front of others, or else there would be trouble. Sis thanked Qin for her advice. She was silent the whole way, so Sis thought that Qin didn't like her presence. Qin wasn't cold towards her sister or anything like that. Just because of her technique, she had lost the emotions of joy and fear. That's why she doesn't show much emotion in her normal life, and she doesn't feel like talking much. A little later, when Jan was meditating in a cave near their camp, he saw his spiritual space. It was like a black and white vortex. The soul is an incredibly fragile thing, an absolutely pure entity that cannot tolerate even the slightest taint from the outside. But what's happening to Jan, even after living 1,000 years in the past world, he hasn't seen anything like this yet. This black and white vortex is not like the depths of the soul. It's more like a black hole that consumes everything in its path. There's definitely something wrong with his body, and it's absolutely related to the failure of his ascension. The true demonic essence technique is still only at the initial stage of the first layer, so he simply can't explore deeper into his spiritual space. To further practice the true demonic essence technique, he needs sinister chi to replace the demonic chi from the past world, so he can't return this unholy ruler to Chen yet. The sinister chi in this ruler is truly boundless and inexhaustible. Mortals who are unlucky enough to touch it immediately fall into a madness due to the hatred and anger in their minds, although people of strong will could resist its effects. Right now, Jan's options are severely limited. Since the strangeness of his soul hasn't affected it in a negative way yet, it's better to focus on cultivating and increasing his strength. He doesn't have time for useless self-exploration. At the other end of the forest, a column of guards and poor people were crossing the rocky terrain. The boy complained to his mother that his legs hurt, and his stomach felt empty. He wanted to eat and rest. The mother replied that he could rest when the sun went down. His mother had only a small ration left, so now they would eat only once a day. The boy would have to be patient a little longer. When they reached the land of the Immortals, then food and clothing would be in abundance. The boy would not have to live like his father. Essentially, these poor people were the seeds for Ares' nurturing. They were being moved elsewhere under escort. One of the guards was resentful, his 17th most senior inner apprentice being sent to do such a menial job as transporting seeds. It's all because of some incompetents who can't even catch a single escaped bastard. The elders care too much about a runaway. If they were to capture him, then perhaps the power would already be in their hands, and then Jiangxi would be left out of the picture altogether. This guard thought that since Zhang was directly spoken to by an immortal, this bitch would die soon, but no. Not only did she not die, but she also broke through to the divine guidance stage. In the entire section, she was the only one who could comprehend the condensation of illusion into matter. Now her position has become even stronger. After that, the elders stopped paying attention to the other inner disciples altogether. Even the third strongest was sent to do such a thing. Right now, it was Jiangxi who was waving the straw as if it was a banner of power. Now their brothers can't even stash away some Dao fruits without being punished. When the eldest brother was the temporary secret manager, their brothers and the guards themselves lived happily ever after. Since this thing was put in, those few Dao fruits a month aren't even enough for a tooth. These guards thought that the elder's loon was wasting so much Dao fruit upstairs just to feed the decrepit old men with one foot in the grave. It's a real waste. One of the elders overheard the conversation of these guards. He spoke directly to Qianbing, the one who spoke those words. Suddenly, there was an enemy attack on this pillar. It cut off Qianbing's arm in the blink of an eye. The attacker was Zhang and Qin. The guards immediately recognized him as their opponent who had once managed to escape from them. The guards were just about to go after Jan's soul, but he came to them. Before one of the guards could use his technique against Zhang, he was grabbed from behind by Lord Chen. He used the opponent's unholy sword technique. If one were to fall into the grip of this technique, one could simply forget about his vicious, invulnerable body technique. One of the guards grabbed the Hu boy, the same boy who complained to his mom about being hungry. He asked him not to come near him or he would crush this kid. He didn't finish his sentence as Jin attacked him with his technique, killing both the guard and the boy. After all this happened, one of Chen's aides reported to him that except for this mother and child, there were 27 people in the column, all of them commoners from the city of Qingyang. The followers of the vicious sect of the highest purity tried to lure them with false promises, but after their explanations and the issuance of dry rations, all went home. Xingyang City and the city's rulers from the imperial family. They dared to search for seeds in Qingyang, and these bastards from the high purity sect are not lacking in courage. Jin stood and excused himself. What despicable bastards, taking a poor child hostage. He was afraid that the enemy would escape and pass the information to his sect, so he had to take the risk. Zhang realized that Jin was shedding crocodile tears. This person is quite cruel by nature, but pretends to be righteous. People like this can't be relied on. If Jian noticed signs that he was trying to harm them, he would strike first. Chen couldn't understand what was going on with Brother Jin. He is usually the most cautious and judicious of them all, but today he didn't seem like himself at all. could be facing a problem in technique, it is said that their family's techniques can affect the practitioner's mind. The creature that had taken over Jin's body realized that these two were savvy. He'll be more careful from now on, but even if they realize he's not who he says he is, what can they do to him? Lord Chen offered his condolences to the child's mother. The child's body is disfigured, but he offered to help bury it somewhere nearby. It was indeed their mistake. Chen also offered to compensate the mother's family. The mother cried out that the child could still be saved. She talked over and over again about the living Buddha. He could save the child. Chen asked who the living Buddha was. The child's body was badly mutilated. He could not be resurrected. In addition, in the city of Qinyan is the imperial residence. Where would there be a living Buddha? The woman answered that he is there. Just no one knows about him until the human body has decayed. The living Buddha can send anyone to the world of supreme bliss. If you go to the world of supreme bliss, you will have endless wealth, luxury, and prosperity. The living Buddha Grace Lion, he is trying to save this world. Even the Lord City ruler himself often goes to his temple to burn incense and make offerings. Jan replied that if everything was as good as the woman described, why had she fled from Qingyang under the influence of the followers of the vicious sect of supreme purity? Wouldn't it have been better to let the living Buddha send her to the world of supreme bliss? The woman replied that they would also like to go to that world, but the living Buddha can only send 100 people a month to the world of supreme bliss, and he only chooses those with the most merit. Her husband died in a mine. He waited 3 months for his turn, but his body managed to heal. Next time, a living Buddha will save people in 2 days. Brother then decided that they will go there then. They are responsible for it. The town is not so far from here. They should manage to get there in 2 days. The life-giving old woman's condition is also stable. The journey to Bianzhou will take more than half a month, so they can just stop by the city to give the horses a rest and feed them properly. Besides, Chen himself wants to see what kind of living Buddha this is, and if it's all true. 2 days later, he reached the middle stage of the foundation stage faster than he expected. The creature immediately read his thoughts. The foundation stage. He had never heard of such a stage. What sect does this guy Jian belong to? The convoy finally reached Qingyang City. There were a lot of miners at the entrance of the city. It is said that there are several rare metal mines around the city. All males here of legal age are required to serve 5 years in such jobs. The mines. We should check for spirit ore. They can be used to forge ritual swords to practice the technique in the Heaven Origin sword formation later. When the convoy entered the city, it was completely deserted. And this is the central city of the county. Looks like the time has come. We need to hurry to the Temple of Supreme Bliss. Right now, the living Buddha is holding a general salvation meeting. Probably all the residents are already there. When the boys approached the temple, they saw many people calling to the so-called living Buddha. When the Buddha came out to the crowd, he said that the world to him is full of suffering, so beings have to go through many hardships. Another month passed, and today, this old monk is once again willing to give up 100 years of his spiritual practice to relieve 100 people from the misery of the sea of sorrow. One of the girls thought Buddha was a vile, foul thing. There must be a world of his lies and brainwashing. 100 years of spiritual practice every month. His trashy ceremonies have been going on for over 2 years, totaling 3,000 years. So why the hell is he still alive? One of this Buddha's followers shouted that the rite of universal salvation was beginning, and he would announce the names of the 100 most virtuous people this month. Lord Chen intervened in the ceremony. He said that there was a child with them who had died a violent death, and asked the living one to save him. The Buddha's follower called them impertinent. How dare they interrupt the sacred rite of liberation without kneeling before the great preceptor? He ordered these ignoramuses to be thrown out of the temple of supreme bliss. The living Buddha stopped his follower, for these gentlemen had come here to save a poor child, so they should not be blamed for not being courteous. Although the body of this youngster is mutilated, but the 3-day period after death has not yet passed, he has a chance of salvation. Besides, since he was brought by the gentleman of the uncleanness control department, it means that this brat is related to a karmic connection with a Buddha. In that case, this old monk will make an exception today and send the boy to the world of supreme bliss first. Hearing these words, Mr. Chen and Jan looked at each other. They were waiting for the next actions of this living Buddha. The Buddha used his technique and everything around them became luminous, as if these people were actually entering the world of supreme bliss. The girl, the city dweller, and the mistress saw the very same shining chains that transport one to the world of supreme bliss. But the mistress knew that these were not shining chains at all. she realized that it was something else. Jan, too, in turn, grasped this point and saw that it was nothing more than an unclean thing that eats people. Jan knew that there simply could not be a real practitioner of Buddhist techniques here. He did not want to get into trouble, so he would just pretend not to notice anything. As soon as the living Buddha showed everyone how the boy enters the world of bliss, John just turned around and started to leave. Now that it's done, it's time for them to go. The living Buddha wished them a leisurely journey, calling them honorable gentlemen and from the Department of Uncleanness Control. But suddenly Buddha noticed Sister Shaolin in the crowd and asked his guests to wait. He said that the old monk sees that this girl has a great glow of merit. In her past life, she was definitely a great benefactor. He also claimed that she was connected karmically with their Buddha, and he was willing to make an exception once again to allow this girl to enter the world of supreme bliss, to taste the infinite. Jan replied that this was unnecessary. He admires the compassion of the great master, but this girl herself wishes to remain in this world of suffering. She does not need their world of supreme bliss. Let them enjoy their world themselves. The Buddha follower called John an insolent man. His mentor wants to guide this girl to the world of supreme bliss. This is the greatest fortune of her life. And how dare Jan interfere in such a thing? Who is he anyway? When the follower reached out to grab Xiaoling, his hand was intercepted by John. When the follower tried to punish Zhang for such insolence, the guy simply cut his arm with his sword. The living Buddha asked him why he had to use such brute force. John's behavior was too oppressive. They must not be aware of the fact that they are now ruining this girl's karmic bond with their own hands. He asked Xiaoling if she wished to enter the world of supreme bliss, cast aside all worries and sorrows, and taste supreme bliss forever. This is a reward for her merit from her past life. She can accept her reward with peace of mind. The girl replied that she did not need any eternal bliss. She would not go anywhere without her elder brother. The monk replied that if the girl did not want to go, then so be it, and asked his assistant Jin Kung to let them go. When the convoy was leaving the city, Chen asked what Jin thought about the world of supreme bliss that the living Buddha had spoken about. To me, no Jin thought that it was just a witch's speech, misleading. Lord Chen thought so too. Eternal bliss sounds like utter nonsense. But if he is a practitioner of the false path, why does the ruler of the city allow him to act with such impunity? Jin jumped into the conversation. Is it their concern? They should not forget about their main mission. Since they are completely done here, they should immediately depart. Considering that they can't leave the city today, that bastard had his eyes on Xiaoling. If they leave the city now, there will probably be trouble. They don't know the true strength of this living Buddha. If he's some average guy, everything will go smoothly. However, if they can't resist him, they are relatively safe inside the city, because the ruler of the city is from the imperial family. Shaolin was born with a special body type, so he probably wanted to eat her. It was the same girl, the city's mistress and resident, who stood in the way of Zhang in the column. She asked the members of the Uncleanness Control Department to save the people of Qingyang. There in the square, Jian had prevented her friend from entering the world of supreme bliss, and had even torn off the hand of that monk, so she was sure that they too had managed to see the true face of the living Buddha. But Jan wouldn't even listen to her. What could this girl with a heightened sense of justice tell them? It was unlikely that she knew much about him. Any information that didn't pertain to the specific power of the living Buddha was useless to the members of the department. Jan offered to temporarily stay in the city today. If no one was following them, they could leave at dawn. Later, the creature claiming to be a living Buddha granted his monk a strengthening of his physical body. He would now be able to easily deal with the master who had interfered with them this afternoon. He also gave the monk a heavenly umbrella, a Buddhist treasure given to him by his mentor. Once those men were outside the city gates, the monk would have to stop them and bring that girl back to the temple. At night, while everyone slept, Jan meditated and finally awakened the eyes of a fierce evil. The very striking evil and the nature of the true demonic essence technique fit well together. Only because of this was Jan able to achieve results quickly. At the middle stage of the foundation stage, it was simply impossible to find another ability that could be mastered so soon. Originally, Jan wanted to fully dedicate himself to increasing his level of refinement, but he had too few spiritual weapons that could at least increase his combat power. During the day, he went around the city looking for the right minerals, but none of them had sufficient spiritual energy conductivity. They were completely unsuitable for making ritual swords. Would he still have to use a blood vessel to forge the right artifacts in the future? Late at night, the monks came to take Xiaoling away. They didn't even wait for Zhang and his men to go outside the city gates. Jin-kun used the heavenly umbrella to raise it above the city. Now that the umbrella had cut off this area from the rest of the city, whatever was going on here, no one would suspect anything. Mr. Chen noticed the attackers and attacked Jin-kun, not expecting them to act to capture the girl. But something went wrong. His body couldn't muster a single drop of strength. This was the action of the heavenly umbrella. It had already managed to suppress the strength to the lowest possible limit. Jin-kun punched Mr. Chen, but his punch was also too weak. After all, he had also lost some of his strength. Zheng intervened. He immediately asked this monk how he got such an artifact. It was a Buddhist relic, a heavenly umbrella. The monks tried to control its power through a spell engraved on the umbrella itself, but Jan was able to remove its effects. In fact, the original crystal umbrella of heaven should be used in a completely different way, and Jan knew how to do it. Just then, a servant of Mr. Chung Ching appeared on the battlefield. He had come to find out what was going on here and why the order had been disturbed. Mr. Cheng explained that he was from the Department of Evil Control, and these monks had attacked them for no reason. They were in the process of completing an urgent task, so he asked the protector to help them. The monk ordered Mr. Chen to shut up. The fact that he was alive was already a great fortune. Jin-kun thought that Chung Ching had come to help him eliminate these people. After all, it was the living Buddha's order. He thought that the protector knew in relation to the living Buddha and his city ruler. He might think that the order of the living Buddha is the order of the city ruler. But instead of attacking Zhang and his men, Chung Chin attacked the monk Jin-kun. The monk asked him to stop now, as he would later explain himself to the ruler of the city. Chung Chin is the city's chief of guards. Keeping at peace in this place is his duty. The city ruler has no right to interfere with his work. Jin-kun was the first to attack the people inside the city. Such a crime is punishable by death, so he can already take his judgment. At this moment, the ruler of Qingyang City, Gang Kun from the imperial family, flew to the scene. He had previously warned Chung Chin not to touch the people from the Temple of Supreme Bliss. But when Chung Chin tried to explain the situation, the ruler did not even listen to him and repeated again to let the monk go. The situation began to escalate, and the guards also brought in a young lady who was trying to tell Jiang who the living Buddha really was. The lady and her assistant were hiding in the North Street and spreading rumors everywhere that the living Buddha was an evil spirit. They were only discovered because someone had informed the guards about it. The ruler turned to the young lady's assistant and reminded her that Yuner had a chronic illness and couldn't leave the house. The aide not only didn't stop her, but went out with her. Yuner tried to explain that it was her who made the assistant take her out, but her father wouldn't listen and just killed the girl. The ruler turned around and walked away, saying that if the girl didn't want to expose her servants, she shouldn't run around anywhere from now on. As for Jan, the ruler said that if they were just passing through his city, they shouldn't make a mess here and let them get out of here as soon as possible. Keen wondered what they should do. The Temple of Supreme Bliss was still a while away, and remembered maybe they should leave while they could. This ruler of the city seems to be in league with that living Buddha. Because of the connection with the sect, Qin did not want to go against someone from the imperial family. Lord Cheng turned to Chung Ching. He seems to be on the same side as the Temple of Supreme Bliss. Lord Cheng wouldn't want any trouble, but after all, the chief of guards saw that the monks were the first to attack them. Lord Cheng asked the chief of guards to tell them about the origin of this temple so that they would act more cautiously in the future. Sheng Qin didn't know the details. He only knew that the living Buddha came here from the west. He began to preach his teachings and talk about the world of supreme bliss. The chief of the guards thought that the ruler would not allow them to stay here, but he, contrary to his expectations, supported them unconditionally. Jan turned to his men and asked them to leave first, and he would catch up with them on the way. There was something he needed to ask the living Buddha. Suddenly, Mrs. Yuner became ill. She had another attack of illness. She must be taken to the ruler's residence. But Jan stopped everyone. He asked not to touch the girl. Then he grabbed the young lady and left a note for the ruler. The ruler at that time flew straight to the living Buddha and tore down the doors and entered the room where his chambers are. The ruler warned the living Buddha not to touch the passing members of the unclean control department while he attacked them tonight. The Buddha began to twist and turn and said that the city governor was mistaken. This old monk only wanted to bring one girl among them to the world of supreme bliss. He had no intention of antagonizing them. This lady's merit and virtue is enough to replace the merit of 10,000 people. There was no way such a destined person could be left to suffer in the midst of the worldly dust and dirt. Enough of these excuses. The ruler of the city has only allowed 100 people to be eaten per month. but he secretly deceives mere mortals and continues to devour them under the pretext of freeing them from suffering. The ruler always looked through his fingers at this, but Buddha touched one exception, not to touch the department for the control of uncleanness. The Buddha again wiggled out. The ruler of the city is too attached to outward form. The Buddha grants these people benefit and recompense because external form is not so important to the Buddha. To be free from this world full of suffering and enter the illusory world of supreme bliss, that is the desire of ordinary people. The city ruler didn't want to listen to these deceptive speeches. He asked for this month's pill. Jingshu gave the ruler of the city a resurrection pill. It is able to bind the soul to the body, keep alive and dying, and even bring back to life a dead man. The Buddha also explained that if he had gotten the young lady that could replace as many as 10,000 people, he would be able to create many more resurrection pills. Because of this resurrection pill, the ruler allows the Buddha to remain in his city, within which he can still harbor the monk's deed. However, if the Buddha causes the ruler even the slightest trouble, he will turn the living Buddha into a dead Buddha without question. After the ruler left, Jingshu told the Buddha that that young man had managed to take control of the heavenly umbrella. The monk was unable to retrieve it even with the Buddha's spell. The Buddha immediately killed that monk. He had arrived in the realm as much as 5 years ago, and in that time had successfully risen from the 10,000 stage to the 100,000 stage. In this country, poor, destitute, and full of suffering people are recognized everywhere. Truly hell on earth. Now a person with such a deep karmic connection to the Buddha's teaching has appeared. Having freed this young lady from suffering, this being will be able to reach the stage of 1,000,000 without any difficulty, and will be of immense merit to all the inhabitants of this realm. The Buddha intended to stay in this city for another couple of decades to continue liberating people from their useless existence. But alas, the ruler was blind and progressing in his selfishness and greed. Since this is the case, the old monk will have to act himself and personally free the woman with such virtue. But after that, he will not be able to stay in this country. All the disciples who have been following him all these years and helping him with the liberation of people will also receive their share of merit and reward. They, together with the Buddha, will save countless ordinary people of this city from torment and suffering. At this time, the rulers had already conveyed Jan's message. This girl has a rather rare disease, but Jan has a way to cure her. If the ruler wants complete healing, let him find Jan west of the city. When the ruler flew to Jan, the guy asked him to calm down. He has no ill intentions towards the ruler and his daughter. Then why did he make an appointment to meet the ruler outside the city walls and kidnap his daughter? He must have become an employee of the Department for the Control of Uncleanness. He gained unprecedented courage. The ruler wanted to attack Jan, but Jan repeatedly told the ruler to stop. Realizing that the ruler was not going to stop, Jan had to use the original Crystal Heaven probe against him. At the other end of the forest, Lord Chen's wagon was rushing away from the city at high speed. Lord Chen believed that the city was relatively safe for now, but judging from the fact that the city's ruler and this living Buddha were in on it, they were in the tiger's lair. They must get as far away from here as possible before that bastard monk comes to his senses. But it was too late. They saw the silhouette of the living Buddha in front of them. He asked them where they were going. At this time, the gates to the world of supreme bliss began to appear all over the city, and people began to run towards them. Jan was still fighting with the ruler of the city at this moment, and tried to calm him down by using a top-quality magical artifact, a crushing stake. This crushing stake was made from a severed arm with the sole purpose of absorbing the enemy's striking power, but the ruler destroyed it in just a few blows. The umbrella didn't do much good with it either. Many of Jan's techniques and billets don't seem to be particularly effective against the ruler. This man is very strong, and Jan doesn't have any trump cards that can overwhelm him right now. Plus, Jan can barely keep up with his speed. If they continue to drain each other's strength like this, it could end differently. They have only been fighting for half an hour, and the ruler is already starting to choke. Jan seems to have realized why he wouldn't even listen to his explanation, and threw himself at Jan with his fists. A ruler can't stay outside the city for long. The ruler thought that Jan knew this, and so he pretends will be through the undead control department. He just couldn't help but know it. Although Jan had arrived with those people, but he was not a member of the undead control department yet, so he really didn't know about it. Jan repeated once again he had no malicious intent. However, his patience and desire to solve everything with words didn't mean that Jan was afraid of the ruler. The guy wanted to make a deal with the ruler. This pill represents the dozens of unsettled souls. Someone who hasn't studied souls deeply enough might mistakenly decide from her aura that this pill has the effect of strengthening souls. The ruler wants to save his daughter with it. But it's like quenching her thirst with poisons. It may temporarily alleviate the symptoms, but if the ruler continues to feed his daughter with it, he will end up driving her into the grave with his own hands. The ruler has consulted many strong warriors, and they have confirmed that this pill can indeed save his daughter. It seems that Zhang's hunch was correct. The Chung Kingdom values the lives of the uneasy people. The ruler wouldn't let that man-eating living Buddha stay in his city without a good reason. Whether or not to believe Jan is the ruler's choice. But unlike the living Buddha, who will constantly blackmail him with that resurrection pill, Jan can completely extract his daughter's disease. The ruler agrees to believe the guy, but only once, warning Zhang that it is very difficult for a member of the imperial family to have children. He was already 370 years old, and she, his only daughter. If Jan dared to deceive him, the consequences would be absolutely unbearable for him. The guy assumed that the ruler must already know the true essence of that living Buddha. John wants to capture him with the ruler's help to interrogate him. The ruler said that while he's here, Jan can interrogate the creature in public, but the guy didn't refuse. He wants to look into the soul of the creature. But when John and the governor returned to the city, the guy went all over the city with his spiritual consciousness. The living Buddha was no longer in the city. The ruler had fed these monks for more than 2 years, and they had secretly and obviously drained tens of thousands of his citizens. In over 300 years, no one had ever dared to treat him with such disdain. Apparently, this monk thought that if he escaped outside the city walls, the ruler would let him go, but he clearly underestimated him. The ruler would close the borders, catch this old thief. The ruler will tear him to shreds and deal with the pesky scum he's made up. The ruler hit all the places where portals to a better world of bliss opened. The source of his power is the townspeople. Jan assumed it was based on some sort of protective formation or structure of the city itself. But that's why their imperial lineage is so fiercely protective of mere mortals. At this time, Buddha was in full swing attacking Chen's column to get Sister Xiaoling. Qin used the jade purity technique of the joyful laughter of the Ku family against him. But it didn't work on the living Buddha because every time Qin used this technique, he would blow up his head to neutralize the effect of her technique. Although it doesn't give him a chance to think about the situation to use his other techniques, but this endless stream of his hands doesn't leave the guys any chance to escape. His head keeps going on and on recovering. If not for Senior Qin's restraining spells, his and Mr. Jin's attacks would be completely powerless against the Buddha. But Senior Qin, she has already used her technique dozens of times. Soon she will be exhausted. If it continued like this, they would all be finished. What should we do? Would Chen still have to awaken the unholy sword to 50%? The living Buddha tried to grab Xiaoling, but Senior Qin managed to get her out of the Buddha's hands and was caught herself. So here he is, the same master of jade purity that is legendary in the Chung Kingdom. This old monk had spent his entire life refining his spirit and consciousness, and was still unable to resist this woman's techniques. This is commendable. The living Buddha also grabbed the creature in Jin's body. Compared to that girl, they were nothing but nothing. So the Buddha will allow them to pass into the world of supreme bliss without too many questions. But catching Jin's body as if he realized that his spirit and flesh were not in harmony, he forcefully entered this body. Although his soul is whole, there are no signs of violent settlement. But in this body is the original soul. But they are somehow different. The living Buddha understood everything. He found out that this body was inhabited by a soul invader and threw away this body as he realized its essence. So the Chung Kingdom is still introducing such an abomination. It's better to get out of this dead place. The Chung Kingdom has not lived up to the Buddha's hopes. It was time for Xiaoling's body to be consumed. The monk wanted to help her escape from this filthy world full of suffering and worldly dust right now. But it was too late. Mr. Chen had used the unholy sword technique in full force.